Do you feel that? Do you feel that? Oh, shit.
Yes.
That's awesome.
I love that video so much. I start every live by talking about how much I love that video, and I'm sure everyone's sick of it by now, but it gets me amped up to talk
gets
about
me
philosophy.
amped up. I love it.
I love the ooh ah, like,
yeah, at the end,
because it's supposed to be like wah, like pretty distinct, like staccato almost, and he's just like ooh ah. But hello
awesome.
everybody. Hello. So it's me, obviously, Uber Mormon. I'm here with Latter-day Skeptic. I've been really excited about talking to him, and now we're going to talk, and then we're probably going to do this more frequently, which I'm excited about. But do you want to introduce yourself? Do you want to talk about your channel? Do you want to, whatever you want to say, here's your time.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate it. Also, this is my first live stream, so I'm hoping some people hop in the comments and can chat with us. I'm Forrest. My channel is Latter-day Skeptic. You're welcome to call me Forrest while we chat. I started my channel about 6 months ago. I'm kind of, it's a rough number. And I do pretty standard ex-Mormon content. I try to keep it more in like I don't know. I have been very inspired by like the new atheist movement. And so it's very logic and reason based. I don't dive too much into, Mormon history necessarily. I like to tackle issues that I think are kind of before those issues. So you don't need to be a expert in Mormon history in order to follow along with my arguments. Yeah, I kind of just been doing it for fun, and it has been fun. It's been crazy. It's been interesting, and yeah, I'm enjoying it.
That's awesome. I love your videos. I feel like you have a very fresh. You're not hitting the same tired issues that a lot of the kind of ex-Mormon world has been hitting over the last like 5 years, like Kinderhook plates, like Book of Abraham, like all that stuff, like that
the CES
I just don't care
topics
about anymore. Yeah, exactly. And I love seeing you just putting a new twist on the old, like on the new atheist stuff that I was obsessed with a couple of years ago. But I like your version of it better. So you've been doing this for 6 months. What would you say? How do I ask this question? When you wanted to start, like, what was the thing where you finally just said, like, I have to start a channel? I have to say something. I think I've heard you talk to Steven Pinecker about this. But I'm curious, like, specifically with if you had a topic in mind when you were like, I just have to start a channel. I can't stay quiet anymore. There's this question that I need to answer. What was your thought process there, and what just propelled you to start a channel?
So I think it was kind of like the combination of a few things. One is my family has always seemed to, like, there's a space online that my family has kind of done that same thing for a long time. Very like in your face discussing religion. Very, for some reason, obsessed with like moral questions and debating morality. And so we already had an interest in doing that. And then my brother Jacob, who has the Thoughtful Faith YouTube channel, he started posting videos, and he's a member of the church. And so I'd heard a lot of his arguments, and I've heard a lot of these things before, and I've discussed with him and debated with him. And I feel like it kind of sounds petty, but it was basically like I just got so irritated, and I was just constantly fighting with people in the comment section and sitting in my chair like, oh, I've heard this, and that I've said this to you about that. Why didn't you bring it up? Or, issues like that. And I realized, like, it's his channel, and he gets to kind of control the message. And I'm not saying that in any offensive way at all. Like, that's just how it works. And so I was like, maybe I should just start my own channel. And so I did. And I feel like with everybody, my first videos were just garbage, and I hate looking back at them. But I'm like proud of myself that, it was it's just each video I tried to improve a little bit more and a little bit more, and maybe I've stagnated a little bit. Like I need to add some new freshness to it, but um, and I do also give my brother a shout out with he actually helped me with some of the studio stuff,
Mm.
lighting, and helped me get the colored light in the back. And so he actually gave me. I visited him one time, and I was like, "Hey," and when I started my channel, I told him I said, "I'm not going to tell you the name yet. I want to kind of get some traction, and then I'll let you know what it is." And then I let him know, and we've had some good back and forth.
Yeah.
But as far as
Um,
topics go, it wasn't anything in particular. It was just I heard the conversation. I was watching his channel. I was watching Midnight Mormons, and I just felt like I was the guy arguing in the comment section.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we should probably address first of all, hello. Uh, I'm sorry, I can never say this properly, but hey,
Oh
thanks
yeah,
for
that's
being
hard.
here. I'm I'm happy that you're here. For we have Jacob here right now, and
Oh,
he's
Jacob's in.
responding to you in real life in real time. He said
Hey,
I
Jacob.
sure am at one point, which I'm sure was referencing something you said. But this is
I
high
need.
praise right here. Your channel is pretty good. He enjoys it. I agree with you, Jacob. Forrest's channel is pretty good, and I also enjoy it. So yeah, so I asked the topic question. Actually, before I say that, I think it's normal for somebody who's putting work into something that's going to be happening over time that you look back on your previous stuff and you just think that it's absolute trash. But I think that's super admirable. Um, I heard this quote once and I loved it so much. It said something like, "A poorly thought through plan executed violently beats a well thought through plan that never gets uh, executed every day of the week." And I just love that. Just like go out there, let the rubber hit the road, put your shoulder to the wheel, try, fail, get better. That's the way to do it. I'm sure there are a whole bunch of people out there who could create better content than me, be more articulate than me, but they just don't. Hey, yes, thank you. They just don't try. They're not willing to fail. And so in that sense, like props to everybody out there who's making terrible content but trying really hard, and it's actually not as terrible as you think it is. It's actually good stuff. So yeah, so okay.
And I
You
do want to say I think it was Mr. Beast. I was watching like an interview. Maybe I think it was him on Lex Friedman. And he was like, I just started making videos, and each video my goal was to like improve one thing. And I
Yeah.
remember early on in my channel, I definitely had that mentality of like, hey, what's this new, I'll chop in videos this way, or I'll try a new transition this
Mm.
way. And so I do want to get back, but it is harder once you kind of get like a routine going. It's harder to add um, like some freshness to the channel.
Yeah.
Also,
But it's
by the way, I
also
have the chat up right here. So if I keep looking off to the side, it's me reading the
oh,
chat.
you're good. Yeah, there's also this the constraints, like the artistic constraints of like I did a video a while ago. Let me ask you this really quick before I say what I was about to say. What's your favorite video that you've ever made?
I really like the one I did on the village. Um, and I like the one I just put out. I feel like every video I put out, I always kind of like it. I
Hmm.
will not. I'll probably say the village. I think the village was a
Okay.
good. It was. I felt like it was a unique perspective that isn't talked about a lot. It felt like I was kind of pushing some of my like personal artistic limits, which I'm not an artistic person. So I was like, yeah. So I was proud of that one. The most recent one I liked, but it was just such a big topic that it's hard to ever feel like you did it justice.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, especially you say that you've never done a live stream before. As soon as we stop going live today, you're going to think of 5 things that you wish you had mentioned. And I feel that way every time I make a video. I finish because I don't script my videos that well. I make bullet points and then I kind of blabber. And do you script your videos?
So yeah, I script them, and every
Okay.
single time I'm like, it's always this give and take of like, how much time do you want to put into scripting?
Yeah.
And you could always put more time into scripting. So
Yeah.
like I write stuff down, same thing. I write it down, I film it, and then I'm putting it together, and I'm like, oh man, or I'll find a clip that I want to put in. I always run into the dilemma of, do you find your clips first, or do you
Mm,
script first? And so like I'll
yeah.
find a clip and I'll be like, oh, I wish I would have like written into the script a comment about that clip.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like I have to find the clips first and think of how I want to use them. Otherwise, I use a 4-second clip and I talk for 4 minutes, and then it's like, what? The clip
No,
says it
and
all.
I think
Why am I talking?
yeah, I think clips first is the better strategy for sure.
Yeah, clips first. And yeah, Jacob agrees with us. So a much more professional channel agrees with us. So we're definitely right.
Yeah.
So
No,
the
his
reason I was
channel's not that
asking you
great.
that, so the reason I was asking you that, I made a video a while back. Have you watched Black Mirror?
I haven't, and a ton of people talk. Yeah, I need to for sure.
Yeah. So I made a Black Mirror video. Like I found one particular Black Mirror episode so like spot on for just like dehumanization and like what goes on in this online space typically, because what I see is you kind of have a bunch of people kind of in the middle who are willing to talk to one another, and I kind of see like I see you in that area. I see like Marty from Where Will You Go in that area. I see Jacob in that area. I'd like to say that I'm in their spirit, my spiritual life. Like there's this
Oh, yeah,
group of
oh, you
people in the
definitely are.
middle
Yeah.
that are like, we'll talk to anybody. And then there's these extremes on both sides that are like, I will never talk to anyone. And I feel like they're such a high percentage of the online content creation that there's a very little ecosystem for us. And this video, this episode of Black Mirror, I don't remember which one it was off the top of my head. It's called Men Against Fire, but I don't remember what season or episode. But I gave myself the challenge. I said, I'm gonna record myself figuring out how to make a video about this, and then that will be the video.
Oh, that's
Like,
cool.
I'm not actually going to start with anything in mind. I watched the episode on camera. I only used like 5 seconds of it, because like who needs to see me looking at a
Okay.
computer? But like I watched the whole thing in the middle of my session. I just, everything was off the top of my head. Trying, like, there would be times where in the editing process I was like, or while the camera was rolling, I was literally like researching Jonathan Haidt so I could bring his his research into this whole thing. And it was a really fun challenge, because instead of making something that was 1, 2, 3, this is the script, it's ready to go, it was, let me make this in front of you right now and then see if it goes anywhere. And it was really fun. I would recommend, if you can find a way to, like, any way you can challenge your process, it just makes it way more fun to create content like this. So
No, that's awesome.
I guess that one, it's called Mormons, Ex-Mormons, and Black Mirror, and it is probably my favorite video that I've ever made.
Okay, cool. I think you are holding a mirror, right? And like looking at yourself.
Yeah,
In the
yeah, and
thumbnail?
that's
Okay. I need to
yes,
watch
a
it.
whole bunch of like, how would I explain this? It felt like, I mean, I'm probably like a very creative person. I played in a lot of bands in high school. Before I dropped out of college the first time, I was studying film. Like, I wanted to go down like the path to becoming a director. Like, I'm a very, not overly artistic, but like I tend more towards the artistic side. And so like I felt so inspired is the best word to say it, of where like I would think of something that could become a symbol for something else, and I just like layered all of them into this video. It was a really fun video. And yeah, I am holding a mirror in that one, and it's because I'm talking to myself. The
Cool.
part of that video when I'm actually holding, because I probably monologue talking into a mirror with the camera recording the mirror. I monologue for like 6 minutes, and it's because I'm trying not to be a hypocrite, because everything that I'm saying I know I'm guilty of, but I also think we need to talk about on a broader level. So I was like, how can I reference this without being a hypocrite? Well, if I tell the audience that I'm talking to myself, by holding a mirror in front of my face. You know what I mean?
No, that's awesome.
So
Yeah,
it was really fun.
yeah, I feel like with the village video, that's kind of, it's like you add a very unique twist and a creative piece to it that isn't being talked about. And yeah, I don't know. I found those like videos more satisfying.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to kind of get in. I've heard bits and pieces of you're one of those rare birds who like left the church when you were quite a bit younger, right? How old were you when you left?
I would say mentally left the church around 19 years old.
Okay. Okay. And so from like when you were a teenager up until building up till the age of 19, what would you say your level of belief was?
I would say my level, it's kind of a, it'll be a weird answer. I just felt like I never really pondered and considered it.
Okay.
I was very I would defend the faith, and I have some funny stories that I've told about like one of my best friends right now. And growing up, we met in high school, and one of our first interactions, he was a Catholic and like homeschooled Catholic. Then came to my school junior year, and I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And then we ended up hitting it off. And one of our first times actually hanging out, we like debated in the car for 2 hours Mormonism versus Catholicism.
Oh,
So it was
nice.
very much like I want to like like let people know that it was very much a part of my identity. I don't know how much I like really considered, do I actually deep down believe these things? Um, but it was who I was, and I was all about it, and got in fights about it. I went to EFY. I think it was 5 times. I think it was one more
Okay.
than you're supposed to technically be able to
Yeah,
go.
that would be, I think that would be 5 times because it's every year from 14 to 16, right?
Is it
Wait, no.
14 to 18?
It's 14 to 18. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I
Anyways, I
remember
went to
that
EFY.
16
I
was an
loved
important
EFY.
age, but
Yeah. Anyway, so my belief, honestly, I'd probably say it was low, but this is like me retroactively looking back. Like I never actually thought about my beliefs other than
right.
like, this is my team and I know how to argue it. Not that I
Yeah.
really knew how to argue it that great. Um, but yeah, I probably had a low belief. If I went back and could ask myself, like deep down, really think about this, I'd be like, wait a minute, you're right. Cause that's how it felt when I got, 18, 19. It was like, wait a minute. I remember sitting in preschool having lessons, and it would be like, I almost felt like I would look around and be like, wait a minute, you guys are saying you actually believe this stuff. I don't think I
Mm,
do. Uh-oh.
mm.
Like it felt like I had this problem. I was like, this is gonna be an issue. And I'm sure some of that had to do with the mission coming down. Like it was like, because, and I say 19, I graduated high school at 19. I was in school late. And um yeah, I think that like the mission made me really consider like, okay, I'm about to dedicate 2 years of my life to this. Is this what I believe? And my answers were like, no, I definitely don't believe this stuff. And then,
What was that
yeah.
like? I remember my brother did a very similar thing right before the mission. He was like, I don't think that I can go on a mission right now. He had just graduated high school. He said, I'm not going to go. It caused a bunch of tension. I remember there would be days when I would walk up to the kitchen, see that my mom and he were like having an argument about the mission, and I would just turn around like, I don't need to go to the kitchen anymore. I do not want to go in there. And so he took a year off, did college, and then the mission after. But I just remember stress in the house for the whole period of time that he was on the fence. What was it like? Um, what was it like potentially not going on a mission? Did you have older siblings that had set the precedent already? Were you the first one? What was that like?
So I did also, so I went to college. So I feel like when I was at home, I was going to church. It was like right around the time I left home, went to BYU Hawaii for a year,
Mm-hmm.
which was pretty standard. So it wasn't like I was ditching out on a mission. It was like, oh yeah, go to BYU Hawaii for your, for a term or for your freshman year, and
Yeah.
then you can go on a mission. And while I was at BYU Hawaii, I was like, okay, yeah, I definitely like don't believe this stuff, and I can't really. So I think that took away a little bit of the tension at home. I had a
Mhm.
great relationship with my parents, and yeah, it wasn't while I was at home, it wasn't an issue. And then when I went to BYU Hawaii, I was separated from them. And then yes, I did have uh I had multiple family members that had already left the church. And so that kind of it wasn't like this uncharted territory that I was stepping into. It was something that I had seen before, so I felt a little bit more freedom to actually like explore those ideas. Speaking of which,
Okay.
I think he's actually in the comments. That's chasing Zorba.
Oh, nice. Hello, Chasing Zorba. Yeah, he was complimenting your village video. I thought it was great too, by the way. So what was that conversation like with your parents? Did you just say, "Hey, I don't think that this is true. I'm not going to go on a mission." And they just said, "Okay." Or what
Yeah.
happened?
Um. So I ended up I actually joined the military. So that
Okay.
helped with
Okay.
some of the like I don't know. There's like an excuse like, oh, okay, well that's your mission then. So I think that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like
yeah.
a little bit of it. But I do remember there wasn't tension when I was still at home, but then when I would go home, it was very much like, "Hey, you're at our house. You're coming to church." And
Mm,
I think some of my I think my parents struggled, and I understand. Like, I think they knew that I was totally not about it, and that bothered them. And we had a couple fights, but yeah, I mean, I think they were pretty reasonable. They like
yeah.
gave me my boundaries, but at the same time, they had their standards. And for the most part, I followed what they. If I was coming home and I was staying with them, I'd go to church. Um, yeah, there was there was tension in those periods for sure.
Okay. So this is a question that I think a lot of people will, or this is a topic that I think that a lot of people will resonate with or have questions about. Looking back, how many years has it been since you decided not to go on a mission? 10
10
years?
years.
Okay. So looking back, if there was something that you could change about the way that 19, 20-year-old you handled things, and you were going to give advice to somebody who is trying to figure out how to have this conversation with their parents, their family, their loved ones, whatever, what would you tell them? What would you tell yourself, first of all? And then
Very interesting
how?
question. Because for one, I'm happy with how I handled it.
Mhm.
Um, I think I felt bad for my parents, but I felt like I needed to go the direction for my life that I believed in. And this is one of my other videos is like I think it was like Mormonism versus my integrity or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's really how I felt about it. Honestly, it was like, oh, this sucks. I love being a Mormon. I love all the. I wasn't big on the faith itself, but I was big on the community and culture. Like
Yeah.
I said, EFY, and I went to state conferences and church basketball, and a good percentage of my friends were Mormon. Went to BYU Hawaii, had great friends there, and so I loved all that. But I was like, for example, like temple interviews or things like that, I would feel really, it's like I'm not going to lie to this bishop. I like the
Right.
bishop; he's a cool guy, and I'm friends with him.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say, yeah, I believe this stuff to your face and just be a total liar. So, um, I would say be true to yourself. Don't feel like you have to, well, and I would say it's actually a more respectable thing, I think, to be true to yourself and be honest to people than to lie to people in order to stay a part of the group. And I think
Yeah.
I think my family, my parents, my friends, I think they and the bishop that I was speaking to, I think they would agree with me. Like I have a belief, and I think it's true that kind of ironic, but belief is not a choice. Like you either do or you don't believe it.
Yeah.
And so being honest about that, I think, is what everyone, including believing Mormons, actually want from you. They want your honesty. Um, but I would say a little bit of understanding for your parents and for other people that have their beliefs. Um, it's gonna be and I think everyone's a little bit different. Like what worked for my family and what my parents expected from me is different for other people. So there's kind of a fine line of like, okay, I'll do what you guys are asking here. Let's say I'm visiting, I'm in town. I'll do what you're asking here to kind of keep the peace, and it's your house, your rules. But sometimes there are things that's like, yeah, probably shouldn't be asking this of me. Um,
Yeah.
and I need to stand up for what I believe.
Yeah, I was talking to Chris Hanna about this. Not it might have been, it was earlier this week, asking him how the conversation went with his parents when he left, and that was 20 years ago, I think. And Chris, I hope that I'm not going to share anything crazy, so it's fine. But he gave really good advice. He just said, try and understand that when they are concerned for you, when they're inviting you to church, when they're telling you to pray about it, they are trying to show love. They're trying to get you to accept something or look into something that they think you need on some level. And his advice was, have the same respect for their views and their approach, I guess, as you would have for somebody coming from a different country saying, these are my rituals that I bring from my country. I would like you to try this with me. Like, just be an anthropologist for a little bit and just understand the culture and the context that they're coming from. Because I think people, I think especially ex-Mormons, feel that they have some sort of permission to just under the guise of, oh, well, I was harmed by this, so I get to be an asshole to you now. And I see that as, whether it's true or not, or you're justified or whatever, or you feel justified, it seems to be doing practical harm to the conversation more broadly. And it seems to be poisoning the ex-Mormon well. And so pragmatically, I don't like it, even though people are angry and they want to show how angry they are. And maybe their anger is justified. You know what I mean? But I can't get my brain around, like, if I make myself look bad and I make everybody who shares my views look bad by how I'm behaving, then ultimately I'm doing more harm to my movement than good, even if I'm sharing the truth. So yeah,
I totally agree. And there's something that like doesn't even make sense to me for people that are that way. And I guess a good way to put it is, are members of the church right now, are they the victims or are they the perpetrators?
yeah,
Because ex-Mormons will leave the church and they'll be like, I was brainwashed and I need to, deconstruct all these things that I was taught. And I'm like, yeah, you probably do. But don't you realize that's what your parents were brainwashed? Like
right,
everyone that was a part of it, if you want to call it brainwashing, like everyone
right.
that's a part of that system is also a victim. So you run into this, and it actually is kind of a hard problem of like, how do I treat you like I also feel bad for you. I think that you are also in this system that I think is a problem, but you also, by participating in the system, are then, causing issues for everybody. And there's a big thing that I hate on ex-Mormon Reddit, which is a problem, but it's people
It is a
like
problem.
sharing screenshots of their,
Yes.
their mom sending a text saying like, "Hey, will you come to church with me?" Like, and it's like, how should I respond? It's like, I don't know. This is your mom. Like, why don't you
Yeah.
not share this to the whole world and have a normal
Yeah.
conversation? That stuff really bothers me.
Yeah, no, I've said this a lot before, but it's always worth saying again. The way that you show compassion towards people who are Mormon right now, who you disagree with, is, I think there's a direct correlation between that and how much compassion you have for your younger self, your younger, less educated,
Oh
more
yeah,
naive, if that's the way you want to put it, operating under this mindset of, I was brainwashed, so you must be brainwashed, but I was justified because I was brainwashed, but you're not justified because I've figured it out and you haven't. You know what I mean? It's such a
yeah,
weird double standard, and so
and I
I
want to
just
clarify,
don't
like
like it.
using the brainwashing language. I'm not saying that it is or isn't brainwashing. I'm just saying that's a
Right,
lot
right.
of the mentality that these angry ex-Mormons
Yes.
have. And it's like, if you accept that it's brainwashing, then you were brainwashed before. Like
Yeah.
perfect, great example. Like you were once a believer.
Yes.
Like, treat your family or anyone that's a member as if it was you before you knew what you know now.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
love that.
Okay. So I'm gonna put this banner up really quick. Let's see how this works. Because yeah, so for everybody watching, we would love to try and take calls. I'm saying it's 9:30 right now, and I'll just put a link in the chat, but it might be a little after, it might be a little before. It just depends on how this conversation goes.
How much fun we're having.
Yeah, if we're having fun, then just, I'll take the calls down. So there's a part of my ego that could die if I put out a link and then nobody calls, because it's like, awesome, no one wants to talk to me. But
We'll
my
just say
ego
that
has
we're
already
having
been
fun.
crushed. Yeah, no, my ego has already been crushed by all the mean people on YouTube commenting on my videos. So I don't have one anymore because it was beaten out of me.
Well, and
But
that's
what I
the
was
kind
gonna
of that's one of the fun things about being the our size channels is that we're kind of still in the fun phase of who cares if this goes anywhere and who cares if it doesn't,
Right.
if it tanks. We can kind of speak our minds because
Yeah.
we don't have like this image that we have to protect.
Yeah, there's a part of me that's just, I would have loved, one of the reasons that I started my channel was I would have loved if YouTube and the internet, or like maybe radio was around then, but maybe not. If I could have a window into my, 26, 27, 28-year-old dad's head, if there was a way that I could go on YouTube, look up his old channel and just watch what he was talking about at that age, especially now being that age, I would love that so much.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Like, how interesting would that be? And I'm sure you can resonate with this. I don't know if you have kids or not, or something like that, but imagine your kid growing up and like, this is what my dad thought when he was 30, and just like, especially after you're gone or whatever, like just to have that for posterity's sake is just kind of a blessing. But I wanted to ask you this. So, and you'll probably have an interesting answer because I've never talked to somebody who was like mentally out so early, but I felt like, so I left for reasons of, very quickly the religion stopped making sense to me. I couldn't like logically figure it out. Yeah, a weekly column would have been a good one too. If my dad
Well,
were a
I
writer
need
at
to
the New
read it.
York
I've only
Times.
read a couple of them.
Oh wait, your dad has this?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
that's
our dad
amazing.
had a radio show and a weekly column.
What? All the things that I'm just like, could you imagine how cool this would be? And in the back of your head,
but I was so young that I never actually, and then like he kind of stopped by the time I got old enough. So my Jacob's quite a bit older than me. So I think he was around a little bit more of that era than I was. So to me, yeah, I should
amazing.
actually read it. And I mean, it is also different reading someone's column than it is seeing them, just chatting on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. So, I'm going to really condense this because I'm not in, like, I'm more interested in your answer, but I feel like I need a little bit of context. I left for what I would consider to be logical reasons when I was 22, 23. But that was the first domino. Was something happened where I suddenly saw that it wasn't working anymore. I didn't see how the life that I wanted to continue to have was compatible with this Mormon perfect dream that I had grown up wanting to have. And so I almost felt like, and it was once that domino fell that I gave myself permission to study the other side, because I had never once in my whole life looked into anything that would be considered anti-Mormon, or I'd never looked into the other side of the argument. And once I did, I felt like the reason that I left was logical. But I does this make sense?
Yeah. Did you have like a catalyst that was not the logic itself? It was like,
I would call it an emotional catalyst that led me down this logical path of leaving. And so I'm so curious, and I always wonder, So for me, the thing that gave me permission to look at that stuff was this catalyst. But and I always ask people this question: what primed you to look at the other side and give yourself permission to equally weigh both things? Because my parents would say things, I would start to bring up doubts, or I would start to bring up questions to them, and they would always tell me, well, you shouldn't be looking at this. You need to be fair, and if you're going to study this stuff, you have to study the Mormon argument as well. And to that, I always said, well, I've been studying the Mormon argument for 20 years of my life. If I really want to be fair, I would then give another 20 years of my life to the other side. So this isn't about fairness. This is about like giving myself permission to not feel guilty about looking at counter arguments. And so, and in the now I'm kind of going off on a bit of a tangent, but bear with me. On the Black Mirror episode that I mentioned earlier, this whole process happens in that video, in that episode. There's a thing that triggers these people so that they can suddenly see things a different way. It's a green light. It's a green light that flashes in their eyes and disrupts a chip that's in their brain, essentially. But so I always ask people, what was the thing? What was the thing that happened, or what do you feel gave you permission to live life on the other side and not feel guilty about it anymore? That was a very convoluted question. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I think it was probably multiple things. My family was never really the family of like, don't look at the other side type of reasoning. So I always kind of felt like, I just felt like we had the truth. So I was like, I don't really care. These other arguments, like you can bring them to me, but I know what the right answer is.
Yeah.
That was more how I felt with Mormonism than like, hey, we need to just be researching pro-Mormon doctrine or pro-Mormon literature, and because this other stuff's dangerous. Like my family was always kind of like, oh yeah, bring it all on. So I think that helped me feel like it was not a big deal. Older siblings having already left helped me feel that way. And then the emotional catalyst I'd probably say was just that like change in life that is approaching when you're about to leave the house and leave high school.
Yeah.
You know, you're thinking about like, what college do I want to go to? Do I want to serve a 2-year mission? Like those made me, people a lot. I've actually heard, people kind of give me crap for like, you left the church because you didn't want to serve a mission. And although it's like, okay, I see how you're making the connection there. It was more like a mission made me really have to consider, like, I can't just do what I've always been doing because I live in my parents' house. And it's like, I'm actually going to go out and try to proselytize and teach people this stuff and change their lives. I need to consider if this is actually what I believe.
Yeah.
And so I think that was kind of the emotional catalyst of like, where do I want to go to school? What do I want to do for work? Do I want to go on a mission?
Yeah, you have a very quickly approaching deadline, and you have to make a decision before the deadline, and it just like it sped up the process.
Yeah, or
That's kind of what I hear you
I don't
saying.
even know if it sped up the process because, like I said, I still went to BYU and I still had like a year.
Right.
It wasn't like, oh, I need to apply for mission right now. It was more like it was a reason for me to really consider my beliefs. Because, it's easy just to like, I live at my parents' house. I go to church on Sundays. I have all my friends at church. Like now things get all mixed up and I need to actually, for myself, choose which direction I'm going to go. I need to like take a little bit of time to consider, what I think about my faith and what I think about what I want to do with my future, all those things.
Yeah. The chat, this is one of your brothers, right? Or this is one of your siblings?
Yeah. So before we were, before we started the live stream, I had mentioned that you guys drink mate, or that you guys have had mate. Danny likes mate.
So are these, is it this brother and Jacob? Because I see him also being very pro mate in the chat, which I appreciate.
Yeah. So they both served in Argentina.
Oh, nice. Yes, this is mate right here. This hat is also I made this. This is my, there we go. Mate
hat. Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah. My Yeah, so very quickly, I was telling this to Forrest beforehand, but my grandmother was an immigrant from Uruguay. She came to the United States in like the 50s, maybe the 40s, and yeah, brought this with her. I've been drinking this since I was about 5 years old. It was way too much caffeine for my 5-year-old body, but I metabolize it quite well now. So yes, it is mate, and now my little guy drinks it. I have a 2-year-old that drinks it with me, so it's pretty awesome. And he is so funny about like he has no concept of like this is hot, it could burn me, and I don't give it to him when it's that hot, but he just chugs. Like he just grabs the straw and just like goes all the way down till it's just pure bubbles. It's cute.
I was telling them that, or I was telling Uber Mormon that when Danny came back from his mission and he's like, "Yeah, mate," I was like, "This tastes like horse hay."
Yeah.
I've never been
Yeah.
about it, but I'm sure it's
But
like anything. It's an acquired taste.
yeah, it definitely is. By
You
the
gotta
way,
start 'em
I
young,
always
too.
forget to. Yes, you have to start them young. I always forget to mention this. My channel, yeah, it's Uber Mormon, but you can call me Cody. I always
Okay,
forget
cool.
to tell people that, yeah, you can use my first name. Yeah, so okay, where were we? Oh, I had a question for you. One last question
Well,
that
I did want to
think is-
say I don't drink mate, but I do drink whiskey.
what? Wait, okay, I'm a huge whiskey guy. What's
I'm not
your?
a huge. This is Woodford Reserve, which I think it's a good middle of the line whiskey.
That's a great one. I want to try. They have a double oaked one.
This is
I haven't tried
the
the
one actually.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's the one that I really want to
was-
try because like.
Yeah, my wife got it for me for a gift. I
Nice.
can't Valentine's. I think.
That are you from? No, you're in what? California, Arizona?
Yeah, California.
Okay. There's a Utah whiskey for a distillery in like South Salt Lake called Dented Brick, and it's like the greatest. It's the greatest thing in Utah. As far as whiskey goes, I'm a big fan. Any of you, anybody who watches this who's in Utah, next time you're at the liquor store, try Dented Brick and tell them Uber Mormon sent you, and they'll be like, "Who the fuck is Uber?"
Yeah,
Uber Mormon? And
we
you'll
don't
be
think
like,
any
"Never
Uber
mind."
Mormons are coming in here.
Yeah, you'll be like, "No, it's the Beyond Mormon." No. Anyway, okay, so I've struggled with this, and so I'm curious what your take is. Dented Brick, yes, somebody who knows. Their gin is incredible as well. This is
The guy who can't pronounce his name.
Yes.
Or girl.
Will you please, whatever your name is, would you like to type a nickname in the chat,
Or how to say it phonetically?
or just a phonetic pronunciation for me, please? Thank you. Yeah, their gin is awesome. But so do you feel that having an emotional catalyst be the thing that begins your, I'm gonna in air quotes say downfall? Do you feel that somehow disqualifies or invalidates the whole chain that follows because somebody could consider that to be motivated reasoning? What's your thought about that?
I think not at all, and I actually think all of your actions are motivated by emotions. Primary, like first, I think I'd have to think about it a little bit more, but I do think that first and foremost, everything you do is because of emotion. So I don't think it's actually it would be like a logical fallacy to assume because you had an emotional reason to, start to consider things that therefore your reasoning is flawed.
Right. I've heard few people say, especially to the people who are very in the lane of the Mormon church is only harming people, like I guess this would be what I see as the beef between like Kwaku and John Dehlin, like that whole like you're profiting on sending people to hell essentially, and it's all motivated reasoning, and like I see that as kind of an unfair criticism because I kind of agree with you. Everything that we do starts as an emotion that we can't define.
I've actually been thinking about this a lot. I think it starts as a want. And I've been trying to think about what a want is exactly, but I
Mhm.
think that's actually a pretty. It's like if you start to consider, start thinking about things in terms of wants, and I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure a want is an emotion. It's like everything you do is because you want to do it, and I think
Uh-huh.
that is emotion.
I'm pulling up an article right now. Do you know the channel Transcendent Philosophy?
I don't actually.
He's been on some of the John Varvaeke streams with Chris.
Oh, he has? Then
Yeah, he just posted a video
I know
that
which one he is.
was, yeah, his name is Seth. He's
Okay, yeah, Seth.
brilliant. I love Seth. I'm talking to him next week. I'll summarize. But so he just put out a video that I would recommend to anybody watching this. It's the way to bridge the is-ought gap. And it's very Jordan Peterson in the argument, because what he essentially says is it depends on how you define ought, and it depends on how you define derive. You can't derive an ought from an is. Well, he says, well, it depends on what you mean by derive, and it depends on what you mean by ought. If an ought is a thing that is a moral, first of all, it's like a moral yes or no, like it's a right or wrong in the way that we think about God commanding things that are good or bad. There's the ought that is morally correct, or there's the ought that grows out of the facts. I'm not explaining this very well. I'll give you two examples. We can teach a computer what the rules of chess are. Okay. Artificial intelligence. We tell it all the rules of chess. And all by itself, it figures out the strategy. The strategy is never explicitly told to the computer, right? It's just your goal is to attack the king. And then very quickly, the computer runs a bunch of simulations and figures out what the best strategy is. Now, in my opinion, that's a way that what you ought to do, the move that you ought to make, comes directly from the rules of the game. Another example, our bodies, the technology is so incredible right now. You can go get a blood test, you can go submit it to a few companies all around the world, and they will tell you what types of food you should be eating, what types of food you should avoid. All of this from our blood, right? They're looking at our blood, they're looking at our genes, they're looking at our DNA, and they're saying you should avoid, I don't know, legumes. That's the first thing that came to my head. But you should avoid this, right? This food is bad for you. Carbs are bad for you. Like my mother-in-law was talking to me about this blood type test that she took recently that basically says, oh, because you're an A, you can metabolize carbs faster than somebody who's a B. Weird stuff like that. None of that is written down on our bodies when we're birthed. You know what I mean? None of that is explicitly told to us as an ought. It's just it's based on a couple of presuppositions. So the first one would be that which can live will live. Number two is that which is living will optimize for optimized living. And with those, like, and then I guess there's a fundamental ought underneath all of that, which is you ought to live. Okay, so with those three principles, we pretty quickly, like the two examples that I've given here. Now, am I making sense at the moment?
I think you're making sense.
Okay, perfect. Because sometimes after talking for a while, I don't feel like I'm making sense anymore. But so what do you think, like in that sense, if we're just saying that which lives is going to optimize for better living, and that could actually be driven by evolution. So for example, human beings chose to use cooperation as a strategy, right? So, and the logic behind this is very, very easy to figure out. If humans attacked each other, if it was a dog-eat-dog world, if it were, I'm just going to take advantage and kill and steal and do whatever I have to do, the very first tribe of humans would have died before they hunted. You know what I mean? They wouldn't have ever taken down a meal. And so obviously the people with those traits are going to pass those traits along more successfully, and we have cooperation as the standard of living in all currently living hunter-gatherer groups and all the ancient hunter-gatherer groups. Cooperation was the name of the game. So if you think of an ought as a thing that you can, I wish I could remember his exact words right now, because maybe, will you do me a favor? Tell me what you think about everything that I've said right now, and I'm going to pull up this portion of his blog post.
Cool.
Does that sound okay?
I think a lot of the moral questions and the is-ought gap, it's theoretically very challenging, but in practice, I think as long as you have a goal, then discussing oughts isn't a problem. And
right,
I think that most humans have these goals that we all agree on, which is, I want to be happy, I want to feel joy, I want to, you could almost just use those things. I want to not suffer, I want to have joy. Just using those, you can almost derive a whole moral system using oughts and is, or using the is of, I guess, just using the fact that people want to not suffer and want to find joy. You now have a goal, and that's the necessary piece that gives you the ability to speak in moral terms.
Yeah. Okay. So I've brought it up. This is interesting. So here's the narrow ought definition. And Seth, if you ever watch this, you get all the credit for this. This is brilliant. Thank you. If one limits the definition of oughts to justifiably authoritative psychological dictates to others, then one sets up an infinite regress that makes the existence of fundamental ought seem absurd. For example, I ought to X, we can ask says who. The says who question is looking for the justification behind the ought. So then he has this little cartoon. The police officer says you ought to obey the law. This guy says who. The police, who gave them authority, the government, who gave them authority, the people who gave them authority, no one. So oughts don't exist. Now, this is the loose definition of ought, and this is the one that I'm talking about when I'm talking about a robot learning how to play chess, or
no, and actually, that I need to think about that more, because I actually thought that was brilliant. Of you program in the goal and the rules, and they're able to derive the oughts seemingly from is, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, this is okay. Wait, there's a bunch of stuff going on in the chat that we should probably talk about. Somebody says legumes. Yeah, I agree. All right. Just got here. What's the subject? The subject is me and Forrest are talking. I don't know if there's really a subject.
I thought that was funny, defining terms and shit. That's my Chris Hanna debate.
Unless you're me and choose not to opt in. All right. This is a good
he changed
joke.
His name.
Yes, that's true. Oh, wait. No, is that the same guy? He said, no, that's a different guy. He said to call him Jeff.
But they have the same picture.
They do have the same picture. I wonder if they're related. Jacob says, is any goal better than another? I would love to have that chat sometime, because if the goal is survive,
well, if you can find a goal that's better than not suffering, then I'd be impressed.
Yeah. Most people want to live. Yeah. Ought emerges from our desire not to suffer. Agree. That's the big catch about humans.
And we have and Jacob has an interesting point, and we've talked about this before. Of he has a very atheistic moral framework, just with a different conclusion. So we actually agree on a lot of our moral discussions.
Yeah, Jacob, if you want to call in around 9:30, we'll chat for 10 minutes or something like that, or until somebody else calls. That could be fun.
Get Hayden on here.
Yeah, if you both want to come on here, that would be fun. So yeah, let's do it. I'm gonna go back to this article really quick, because I want to read the loose definition. Okay. What if one expands the definition of oughts to include any dictates? This removed the need for finding a source of authority to justify said ought. This could even be recursive and apply as psychological dictate to oneself, as an internal thought. I think anyone could agree that these types of oughts exist. Every time a person offers a moral opinion, they have created an ought for society. Every time a person sets a goal, they have created an ought for themselves. The ontology of the existence of these psychological oughts is an idea within the minds of conscious agents, an imperative founded upon a psychic value system. What can we say about the relationships between these oughts and the ought is gap? These oughts came from values. Values come from a combination of intuitions. For some reason, I can't read that right now. And beliefs.
Intuitions.
Intuitions and beliefs come from nature and nurture. So what I like about this, because we could party. Yes, Chris, it's a party over here. We could. I love the way that he frames this. Because earlier in this conversation, you and I were talking about how you can't really choose your beliefs. I think the best, and I don't think that a person can choose their values either. This was the main debate between Nietzsche and Jung.
Oh yeah,
was that Nietzsche said God is dead. We are all gonna have to come up with our new value system. We're all gonna have to come up with our own rules and goals, and that's, in that sense, we're going to all become our own gods and create the path, the bridge for the Ubermensch, or the Uber Mormon, as you know. But and what Jung said was, you can't choose your values, you can't choose your beliefs. They choose you. You're stuck with them. And so I think it's interesting because the point that Seth is making in this article is essentially your values and your beliefs are a product of nature and nurture. And we don't know what's going on there. We don't know what proportion of nature is doing the heavy lifting or nurture, or if it's different for different people. We don't know any of that. And so to just say this all rests on something that we don't really know where it comes from, but we know that there's an interplay here, and that's where an ought is born, is, in my opinion, the most, I don't want to use the word grounded, but I don't see how you can get any deeper than that. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's part of your unchanging DNA, because and DNA as its experience with you, it's almost like your epigenome at this point, that your beliefs come out of that. So anyway, that I loved that article. I loved everything that Seth said about that. I thought it was so thought-provoking, and I would tell everybody, go watch his video. I'll link it in the
please do. I want to go watch it.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I'm gonna link it in the live chat right now. But
I will say, I feel like I disagree a little bit on, you don't choose your beliefs, and I haven't thought too much about choosing values or not. But in terms of beliefs, you don't choose your beliefs, but beliefs can change with reason and evidence. And
yes,
the easy example of this is like, you were born Mormon, and then you learn new things, and then that belief, like, I do think I believed in Mormonism at the time, and I don't know how much I believed, but I believed in Mormonism at one point, and now I don't anymore. And that was through accepting reason and evidence. So although it's like, I wouldn't say it's like a part of your DNA or anything, but I do think it's something you don't choose, but it's something that emerges from beliefs, reason, your nature, how you were brought up, all the nature nurture stuff.
Right. And so this would be my fundamental disagreement with maybe we should go into free will. That might be fun.
Please
so
no.
I have a hard time. I'm going to try and circle this back to what you were just talking about, but I have a hard time understanding how the free will debate could be in any way falsifiable. And so I'm left thinking that we probably don't have it, but we should think that we have it.
To be honest, I haven't thought too much about it, because I think we're kind of on the same train here of, like, does it make a difference if, like, will we ever know? It feels like we have free will. Our experience is that we have free will. So it seems as if it's not going to really be able to affect our world either way.
Hmm.
I will say that my favorite argument for free will, and it's actually what got me on this. Uh, I've been thinking about, like I was saying earlier, I've been thinking about wants a lot, like the idea of a want. And it was actually Cosmic Skeptic, who my brother had mentioned in the chat.
Yeah.
He had a really cool argument for why we don't have free will, and it's basically, I think it's something like, um, everything you do is because this is the syllogism. Everything you do is because you either are forced to or you want to.
Hmm.
Um, you aren't morally responsible for the things that you are forced to do, and everything you want to do, you didn't choose. You don't choose your wants,
You don't choose to want. Yeah.
and therefore every action that you have, you didn't choose.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I
You'd have to watch the video to see the whole thing. But I was like, I can't see a flaw in this.
No, I can't either. And the main flaw with the entire free will debate, this is this is my issue with the God debate, and this is my issue with the free will debate. Entirely unfalsifiable. I don't see the purpose of debating things that can never be verified or falsified. Maybe one day we'll have the technology to like let somebody go back in time, live through different nature, live through the same nature but different nurture. Because even like, I mean, we've done twin studies, but we only watched the way that impacted one of the twins. You know what I mean? There's no redo. So you can't go back 5 years, have different things happen to you, and then still watch how your actions unfold. So it's entirely unfalsifiable. The question, because of that thought, is what's the most pragmatic way to live your life? Like, is it helpful for you to believe in God? If the answer is yes, then you should believe in God. Is it helpful for you to believe that you have free will? If it's helpful for you, then I think that you should believe that. But
But so this
you
is
can
where the whole
decide if
you
it's
can't
helpful.
choose your beliefs. Like what you were just saying is almost, it doesn't make sense in the way I see belief. Maybe you could
Okay,
say,
so
does it make sense to believe in God or what'd you say? Is it beneficial to believe in God? Then you should believe in God. You may be able to say, is it beneficial to believe in God? If so, you should act like you believe in God.
yeah, sure. I don't have an issue with that, because I do think that you can look at yourself and you can live your life one way. Let's say the first way is that you believe in God. You can live yourself a different way. You can do a science experiment. You can say, I have a hypothesis that if I stop acting like I believe in God, if I stop making myself feel guilty when I do things that I think God is telling me to do, maybe my life will be more guilt-free. Maybe I'll suffer less. You know what I mean? You can run this experiment and see what happens. And if you enjoy the way that it feels, if you feel on a subjective level that your suffering goes down, then you can say, okay, I'm going to let go of this. You know what I mean? And maybe that doesn't make sense. Maybe I need to go back and maybe be a little more clear with what I was saying earlier. But if your belief is like, your beliefs are so core, and I think that you really can't change them. But the way that you act and the way that you give yourself leeway and the way that you forgive yourself for breaking certain rules that earlier you thought were rules and now you don't think are rules, I think that's malleable to a degree, but I don't think that's the same thing as a belief. That's probably why whenever Jordan Peterson gets asked if he believes in God, he always says, I act like I believe in God. Because yeah, I don't think that you can. I mean, he probably doesn't think there's a human shaped thing that lives in outer space that started everything and is in charge of everything. But he probably thinks that personifying the well-being of society is a good enough God, and he'll live as if that's God. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and honestly, I have no problem with someone that says, I don't believe in Christianity, but if you act in accordance with the principles of Christianity, then your life is way better.
Yeah.
I just say that's okay, cool. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Let's act that way.
Yeah.
The problem is when there's someone like Jordan Peterson where he starts to like get confusing on like he
Yeah.
basically says like you can see what someone believes based on their actions, and I just think that's total garbage. And
Yeah.
I think we could prove it's garbage right now. Like, could you act like there's a boogie monster in your closet right now? It's like, yeah, you could act like it.
Yeah. I mean, I
100
would run
100%.
away from my closet.
Yeah, in your
And that's
mind, you
the,
know it's
yeah.
fake. You
Yeah.
don't believe it. I don't
Yeah.
think
It's
that.
almost like, yeah. Yeah.
So I've never bought into
Yeah.
that argument, but I like the idea of like, and this is where it actually works really great in like a atheistic worldview is if you can make an argument for why acting like a Christian makes your life better, then that can transfer to all atheists. You can say, hey, all
Yeah.
atheists, you don't need to believe in this stuff, but if you act in these ways, then suffering will go down. There's nothing in atheism that says you can't believe that.
Yeah.
And
And that's kind of, sorry, go
yeah,
ahead. Go
and that
ahead.
only works for the actions themselves. It doesn't work for the justification of the actions, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that kind of addresses, I think this is one of the areas that Mormonism gets it right is there's this idea in kind of mainstream Christianity that essentially like all you have to do is accept Jesus into your heart. And that's so vague. You know, like sometimes I wonder, okay, could I just like in my head say like I accept you, man? I don't think that he was who he said he was. Like, I don't think any of that. But if I just like kind of accept him in my head, does that count? And I like how Mormonism turns it into you have to act, you have to do certain things to prove that. I think that they get a little too legalistic in the whole like you have to be baptized in this way. These words have to be said. The sacrament prayer is like everything has to be verbatim. It all comes down to like I think they get too legalistic, but I think their head is in the right place where it's like you actually have to do something more than just do this vague thing in your head in order to be saved.
I mean, I actually disagree a little bit. I do think that, and it goes back to what I was just saying. Like, it's totally possible to believe in Jesus and act like a total shithead. Like,
Yeah.
and especially with the assumption beforehand of we are fallen people that are sinners. Like this idea that in order to prove that you're following Jesus, that you have to act like Jesus. It's like the whole point is that we are not Jesus and we're never going to live that standard. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I like the Mormon idea of like, hey, if you're a real believer, you should probably not be, it's like that question, like if Hitler was on his deathbed and he just said, I accept Jesus, like, is he going to heaven?
Yeah.
Like there's a problem there.
Yeah.
But I
No,
also
there's
think that
definitely a
like
problem there.
the other end of the spectrum is in order to truly believe in Jesus, your actions need to prove it. And your actions would therefore have to be the actions of Jesus, which all Christian religions accept is impossible.
Right. Right. There's got to be some sort of meeting in the middle where I feel like when I really started to like understand what Mormonism was asking of me, I was in some part of Mosiah, and it was like eventually your desires will change to be God's desires. Like that was what I saw as the goal of doing the actions and letting your heart slowly change. And I think that's what they were asking of you. But I don't on a pragmatic or a practical level, I don't think that the things that they ask you to do really can change your heart that much. I think you're either a good-hearted person who deserves to be sent to heaven, or you're not.
Yeah,
and I think
it's
your
like
actions grow out of
regardless of your
that.
actions, like
Yeah.
If you're a good-hearted person, then your actions are probably going to show it.
Yeah.
And who am I to judge? And then on the other
Right.
end, like if you're a garbage person, then your actions are more than likely going to expose that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't be that person that sits there and be like, you're not following this rule, so you're probably one of the garbage people.
Yeah. Because then, yeah, exactly. Then it all folds in on itself.
Yeah.
Okay. Where, I mean, at this point, all right. In this like Mormon ecosystem of like content creators, where exactly, like, what role do you see yourself playing?
Yeah, I did have some questions about this too that I want your perspective
Okay.
on. But I think a few things. One, when I hopped in, most of the people are either garbage or they're not. I'd have to think about no more, but probably no. There's probably some gray. Anyways,
I think when you said garbage person, you said a person who like drives the truck and takes out the garbage.
yeah,
And that is
either,
true.
Yeah, that is true. You're either a
Yeah.
garbage man or you're not.
There are two
There's
types
no-
of people in this world. There are people who drive the trucks every morning and take the garbage, and then there are people who don't do that. Obviously,
Yeah.
Jacob.
Okay, where were we? So originally coming into this, my idea was, and kind of on the whole, I was getting bothered by my brother's channel, but I was also getting bothered by Midnight Mormons.
Okay,
So they were
yeah.
bothering me a lot. So Saints Unscripted, they weren't bothering me so much as I just felt like I had some counters to some of the stuff they were producing. But I was like, there's a lot of ex-Mormon channels, but there aren't very many more conservative-ish ex-Mormon channels. Like all these ex-Mormon channels are like, you have like Zelf on the Shelf,
Yeah.
Exmo Lex,
Yeah.
Mormon Stories. Like, I'm like, these are all very like left-leaning
Yeah.
channels. So I was like, I'll come in and I'll be a more conservative voice in the ex-Mormon community. And two things happened. One, I found out that there are some ex-Mormon conservatives.
Yeah.
It seems like I mean to ask your political leanings, but it seems like you're at least not obviously left.
Yeah. No.
Porch Time's a good example.
Definitely not left.
Okay. Yeah. And then
I've talked to do you know Jared? You know Jared Higdon.
is Jared from the Porch
Yeah,
Time
Jared
chat?
from
Jared?
Jared from Porch Time.
Yeah.
He once told me that I'm not as conservative as I think I am, or something along those lines, which I thought was pretty funny. He's like, I've talked to Uber Mormon, he's not as conservative. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm definitely not like, I don't know where I am, but I'm definitely like not left. I can promise you that.
Yeah. So I was like, there are none of these people. And then I hopped in. I was like, oh, wait, maybe I just didn't find them.
Yeah.
But I mean, at a minimum, they're not as big as those other channels. And then the other thing that happened, which I've talked to Marty about this, I do think I did a bad job. Basically, no, yeah.
It was
Yeah, basically that.
Yeah.
I did a kind of bad job early on of like, and I'm in a little bit of a dilemma where my biggest beef with the Mormon Church is probably on the gay issue, basically.
Yeah.
So a lot of my
I
my
remember you
videos
saying
were
this. Yeah.
a lot of my videos were very like against Mormonism and their stance against gay marriage and those types of things. But the issue is that puts off. Like I came into this to be a little bit more of a conservative voice, and
Right.
luckily for me and maybe for yourself, I'm not sure, but like the conservative side of the political spectrum is starting to become more pro gay marriage,
Yeah.
especially the youth or the youth.
Everyone
the younger
except
people.
for Matt Walsh.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I did a video with him. Anyways, so I think I like didn't do a good job early on at kind of like figuring out where like my goal didn't meet the image I was projecting on my channel. But then I feel like I'm starting to settle in a little bit now. And it's been interesting connecting with people like you and Chris. And there are some people that are out there that are ex-Mormons that are also like, hey, we're not total like leftist woke people. So that was the original place I was trying to fill. And yeah, hopefully I can kind of, my audience will hear a lot of these conversations and they'll start to realize where I stand.
You cut out for like the last 30 seconds of what you were saying.
Oh. I think I was basically saying that hopefully the audience now can kind of hear, now that I've had more content produced, they'll start to kind of see where I stand on things.
Yeah.
Because yeah, like I was saying, the initial videos I was putting out was very, and it was also because the church had some big issues
Right.
coming up
You were
about,
responding to topical things.
yeah. So it was like
Yeah.
kind of there was two problems at once going on there.
Yeah. I
But yeah,
don't know if the
I'm hoping
gay
I can fit
issue is
that
a
conservative space.
yeah, I don't think that the gay issue is like I feel like nowadays on 9 out of 10 issues, if you hear somebody say their opinion on one thing, you pretty much know how they feel about the other things. I don't feel that way about the gay issue. I
Yeah,
feel like that one is something that is pretty much culturally been accepted as these people are born this way. They are not in the same way that you again can't choose your wants, right?
yeah.
Like I couldn't choose, like it would be like asking me to marry like the person next door, like
Well,
I have
and
to
that's
marry his wife, but I don't
in
want
my mind.
to.
I've thought it's actually like asking a straight person to pretend to be gay.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that's just not in my wheelhouse. And that in my, like, that's what I believe is the situation they're in.
Yeah.
And once I
Yeah.
kind of
No.
accepted that, and honestly, once the, society kind of accepted that you don't choose to be gay, it puts, especially some like, like the church, it puts them in a hard position to try to like, it's one thing when you choose it, and then it's like, okay, we're asking you to not choose it. It's just like
Yeah.
any other sexual sin to choose to not do it. But it's another once we accept that it's just like as attracted as I am to females, they are to males, and for women the same. Like it changes the whole moral situation.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks like we have. Okay, I thought somebody was responding to us, but then I realized that they're responding in the comments to Jacob. Yeah, so you, if I got all of that correctly, you kind of see yourself in like the almost as a response to how incredibly I'm just going to use the word woke because that's the easiest way to define them.
Yeah.
It feels like at this time, but
I'm fine with that.
I think my biggest criticism for like, especially Zelf on the Shelf, especially Mormon Stories, is I think they went from being a land. I can't tell you how long this has been going on because I haven't been. I watched their content for kind of a short amount of time, but they are taking people who are incredibly vulnerable, who just left something that took up their whole identity. And now they are kind of back at square one as far as their identity goes. They don't know, like the God question, the Mormon question, all of those implications for how they should feel about the world politically, about how they should feel about things being moral and immoral came from that. And now that that's gone, they're a blank slate almost, even though people are never really a blank slate. But as much as you can be, you've lost all of your deeply held beliefs. They've been taken from you, for lack of a better way of saying it. And they're basically, while under the guise of saying, we're just truth seekers, we're just telling you how it is about the Mormon church, they're slipping in, that phrase in politics where like a bill is stuffed with pork.
I actually don't know the phrase, but
Okay.
go on.
So if a bill is stuffed with pork, it's like, let's say a bunch of Republicans write a bill about something that a very Republican issue. So let's say a bunch of Republicans write a very pro-life bill or something like that. And then like 5% of the bill is like, also we get $200,000 raises. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the pork. The bill is about this one thing. And then if the Democrats say, well, we don't want to give you raises, which this example doesn't work at all, because why would they be having this argument? But the Democrats are like, no, we love the pro-life bill, but we don't want to give you raises. And then the Republicans say, well, what? You don't care about children? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And it's the pork that they're disagreeing with. And so that's what I see Mormon Stories is doing here. They're pretending to be neutral, and they're just, hey, we're just truth seekers. We're just trying to help you figure out where you should land on the other side of this faith crisis. Meanwhile, here's a bunch of woke ideology that you can now have that we're just going to slowly slip to you. And then whenever they're asked about it, they will just say, we're trying to be neutral. I don't know where this is coming from. And it's frustrating. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I will. At one point, I had left the church. I was watching Zelf on the Shelf. They were doing a live stream and they started talking about politics. And I was like, oh, fuck. I think that I made a huge mistake. Like, if this is how if this is how they think about politics, I don't know if I can trust them about anything they've ever said about Mormonism. And I pumped the brakes. I stopped watching all of that kind of stuff. And I started I just couldn't, I don't know how it automatically goes so far to the other side, but that scared the shit out of me.
Well, and kind of back to your earlier question about where do I want my channel and maybe your channel and these other channels to when, the Midnight Mormons are saying oh, if you go, if you leave the church, you become this woke lefty. A lot of people are seeing that, yeah, those are the channels on the ex-Mormon side. And you see that and you're like, wait a minute, I don't want to be a part of that. I'll say Mormon. And hopefully they can see more reasonable channels, at least, like ours, hey, there's some variety here. We always talk about how atheism it doesn't prescribe your other beliefs. So just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you have to be a leftist,
right?
Or super woke. And that is definitely how the ex-Mormon space was feeling. And so I mean, I don't blame you for hitting the brakes when you see Zelf on the Shelf's politics.
Yeah, no, and what I worry about, because like you said, they are the biggest players in the game, that we could have people who are maybe thinking that the best option for them would be to leave the church, and their first exposure to ex-Mormon content is a particularly woke episode of Mormon Stories, and they just say, all right, no, clearly the church was right about these guys. They're a bunch of insane woke maniacs. And for me, so many of these issues just come back to pragmatics. That doesn't seem like the best way to help people figure out if they should remain in the church or not. It just doesn't make sense to me. If the real goal, I mean, Mormon Stories is on I don't even know how many thousands of episodes at this point, but if their real goal was just help people find the truth, cover the CES topics, the CES letter topics, and then unplug, you're done. It lives on the internet forever. But in order to stay relevant, in order to keep making money, in order to stay at the top of content, you have to keep on you have to keep going live. You have to keep talking to people. And as their ideology grows, it just exposes more. I don't know. I worry about new people who are seeing that for the first time. I really do.
I don't. Yeah. I mean, I feel like maybe I have a soft spot for Mormon Stories. It seems like everybody else doesn't like Mormon Stories, but I still will speak positively about them. I totally agree that John DeLynn has an angle.
Hold on 1 second. We're losing you. You okay? You said if you think that you have a soft spot for Mormon Stories, and then we lost
back.
You.
Yeah, I feel like every time I talk to the more conservative side, they all despise John DeLynn, which I get it from a political perspective, but on a lot of his content, I still see as very just Mormon related, but he also does have a lot of political content. And I know the Porch Time guys will laugh at he always we don't do politics here. And it's you obviously do politics. We and maybe I'm also just, I guess maybe there are people that will see him and see him as neutral, but I go into watching, I watch John DeLynn. I'm yeah, okay, this is a guy that has a lot of very interesting people on his channel that talk about very interesting Mormon related content. And he also has this left-leaning bias that I'm aware of. So maybe it's just, I have kind of screened that out in my mind.
Yeah.
But also, I just can't imagine people are watching that and being like so naive and so malleable that they're like, this is what being ex-Mormon means. It means like I've talked to I brought this point up a couple times. Like to me, it seems a little bit patronizing to like it seems like you may be assuming that people leaving the church are just like these children that don't have any critical thinking abilities, and that John Dehlin is just their puppet master that can, guide them in whatever direction he wants. To me, it's like he's
I mean,
presenting an argument, and if his argument is a good argument, then people will listen, and if his argument is bad, then people may not listen. But he's just doing the same thing we're doing, which is he's presenting his case, and maybe the place that we can criticize him is he's not acknowledging that's what he's doing.
right.
But sometimes it's hard to like decipher where, like, I think where he defined neutral, he doesn't even realize is not neutral.
Right.
It's very left leaning.
Yeah. I mean,
so-
we're criticizing a blind spot, which to a certain degree, maybe he can't be culpable for having a blind spot because it's kind of the definition of a blind
Yeah.
spot, you're not aware of it. But I do think, I mean, I did a video on this. I went over Erik Erikson's stages of like identity versus I forgot what it is, but in Erik Erikson's stages of development, he goes over identity versus role confusion. And Mormonism, I think it really does take on your whole identity. And so I don't see myself as being, rude to these people by saying like, I think that he could sneak things into your way of thinking that you don't recognize, but people really are such a blank slate. You really question everything. Like you don't know I was in the stage of not really knowing which way was up and not really knowing which way was down.
But I guess a good example
2.5
is
years.
But you were still able to see Zelf on the shelf and be like, wait a minute, this is crazy.
That was at the end of the 2 years, but
Okay.
Yeah. And I actually did, it was weird. I left the church and I actually did swing pretty hard liberal for a while. Just because that's everything that I was consuming at that time.
And I think that's more of the issue than I think John Dehlin converting people. I think it's more a matter of like overcorrection. I think people leave Mormonism and they think, well, this, and this were all lies. So I'm going to assume all these other things I was taught were lies. When it's like, no, those are actually good. We want to hang on to those.
Right.
And so then I think maybe that's even what John Dehlin is doing. Yeah.
I mean, if there was somebody as big as him coming from either an aware right side of the political spectrum perspective, or just if he was just saying like, I'm super leftist, I'm very woke, like, this is my perspective on these things, then I think it would be fair. But yeah, I mean, maybe we're just beating down the same point, but I think the fact that he's calling himself neutral and he's just, like
the blame to give on John Dehlin is on that point right there.
Yeah. And yeah, I agree with you. We probably, I mean, to a degree, like I have a bigger soft spot in my heart for him than I do for like X-Molex or Zelf on the Shelf or any of those guys. Because, I first listened to a couple of the older episodes. There's that one with the British guy who talks about the second anointing that I feel like everybody listens to when they first left. And I think I missed it. No, oh man, how could you? That was a really good one. I feel like politics weren't so much part of it. I don't remember what year that was, but yeah, I mean, you're just you just assume that everything is wrong. You just assume that the baby and the bathwater are wrong, and you just, well, this is the only content options that I have, or at least the big ones that YouTube is like optimizing for search or whatever, because we're small guys, porch time.
Well, and that's what I was saying. That's why I hopped in thinking that there was none, but I think it was more the algorithm was giving me all the big ones, obviously.
Yeah.
Also, I want to give a little shout out. So Mason in the chat is the guy I was talking about earlier, the Catholic that I was debating with.
Oh, nice. Okay, I want to read what he said. I think a lot of it has to do with the way you view our culture as partially shaped by religious doctrine. Partially is I mean, I think it's almost entirely shaped, but we could go there. An easy one is gay marriage being illegal. Continues to trans issues, abortion, etc. And then he also just barely said.
I should clarify, he is no longer a Catholic.
Okay. Wait, I think I missed. He said something. Okay. This was his first comment. I'm late to comment, but when I left the Catholic Church, I had a gradual but pretty massive swing from right to left. Yeah, I did that too, Mason. I would probably be considered super woke by a lot of people. Is that right now? Are you using present tense? Mason, you should call in later.
Also, yeah, I think we're
almost at
that time,
shit.
by the way.
We're at 9:30. Okay, so do you have
lines
any
are ringing.
like last? Well, they can't ring. I haven't put the thing out yet, but do you have any other? I feel like we touched on a lot of different things. Was there anything specifically that you wanted to talk about, or do you want to just open up the lines? We should probably do this like once a month.
I would love to.
Maybe that's too much, but something like that.
One thing I did, it was kind of on the same vein. I did want to ask, because I feel like I have maybe a blind spot of like, do you feel like I don't want to say not a resurgence, because it's not resurging, but a surgence. Is that a word?
a revival? No, but it's a vival. I don't know, man.
Look, it seems like I can't tell if it's just because I'm getting more in this world and now the algorithm's feeding me stuff, or are there more voices on both sides? Honestly, I feel like we're obviously similar sized channels. Mormonism with the Murph is another guy I would love to talk with.
Yeah, I just barely learned about him.
Oh, did you? Yeah, it seems like there's more channels popping up, and I don't know if that's just me getting more involved in the community, or if there is kind of this YouTube growth that's happening in this space.
You know what we should do? I mean, the only way that we could really quantify that is you and I both started somewhere around 6 or 7 months ago. It would be interesting to talk to all of these other channels and figure out when exactly they started, and kind of just have that what caused you to start conversation, and put some data together just from talking to a bunch of people, because I feel like there is some sort of resurgence. I think John Streeter did it. I think that you know what I mean? I think that
when he was a big inspiration for myself, which I still have yet to have any kind of communication with him. But when he was on Midnight Mormons, I loved everything he was saying. I was like, this guy's exactly where my head's at.
Yeah, I on one of the like Mormon stories, it was like beginning of the year, and John said something like, what should we do to make Mormon stories better for everyone? He put some sort of comment like that in his channel feed. And I responded and said, I think you should bring on a conservative co-host, and I think it should be Jonathan Streeter. And this was after everybody was canceling him from everywhere. But this is, George, I think, okay, wait, we got some things that are responding directly. Jared says, been following this stuff for a while. I think more reasonable voices have been popping up lately, not just as YouTube channels, but in comment sections as well. Somebody else says,
this is Porch Time Jared, right?
Yeah, this is cool. He's also Morgan from My Spiritual Life.
Yes, ex Morgan.
Ex-Morgan, yes.
Yeah, so
she used to be named Morgan, and now I don't know what her name is.
Now her name is ex-Morgan.
COVID boredom. Jonathan says he's tried to get you on, so there it is. Jacob also says Streeter's awesome. Yeah, I think that we're just kind of talking about the people who are willing to talk to the other side is really what it is. I think that, I don't know if you could call us all conservatives, but I mean, I probably more libertarian than conservative, but it interchangeable, really, But
classical liberal.
Yeah, like in the 90s. Yeah,
a belief that free speech and communication is important.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember. I guess I brought up Streeter because he did a bunch of trans videos. He did that video with
I haven't seen
detransitioner.
Okay. I need to
Oh,
watch it.
wait, no, he did the one that started it all. I'll send it to you when this is over. He did a video. He has that website called Is It Culty? By the way, Jonathan Streeter, if you ever watch this, please come on my channel. I'm friends with you, but I'm friends with you on Facebook. But
We're
I'm too
best
nervous
friends.
yeah, I'm too nervous to send you a message. Also, nobody knows my last name, so he probably doesn't know that I'm me. Because this is funny. Okay, the first time I ever messaged Chris Hanna, I was in a conversation on Facebook with Chris Hanna for like months, just chatting, And then I mentioned like, this is interesting. I think I'm going to talk about it on my channel. And he was like, you have a channel? And then I was like, oh, wait, I've never connected the dots for this guy. And so I just said like, yeah, I'm an Uber Mormon. You've been incredibly nice to a stranger for like months at this point. But
yeah,
no,
I've actually
Streeter,
had that multiple times. Like people, like I guess Jared, for example, like I wouldn't have known that was Jared on Porch Time. Jared.
yeah,
So
we
like,
should
there's
all
been
have
multiple
name
times. I'm like,
tags.
oh, that's who that is.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll send you the video of so he interviewed a detransitioner using his Is It Culty website, and then he posted the score of how culty trans activism was.
100% or what?
Well, it was rated higher than Scientology, Jehovah's Witnesses, or
Wow.
Mormonism. So it was pretty wild. Anyway, I would love to put a link in the chat and just let people on one at a time. And just do this for, I don't know, we'll see how long this goes, but I'm posting something now. So anybody who wants to join us, sorry, it's a little after 9:30, but just had a couple of threads to tie up, even though I don't think that we did. No, we did. We're awesome. He wants Forrest culty score after he got his brother's score. Wait, what does that mean, Chris? Come on, Chris, and talk to us.
Jonathan Streeter's culty website.
Yeah. Wait, so did you do it? No, your brother did it.
I have no
Because
idea.
he's saying after he got his brother's score.
Oh, after he got, yeah, so maybe he got my brother's score. Or
who is the he and who is the his? Who is the brother?
I'm assuming it's Jonathan Streeter wants Forrest culty score after he got Jacob's score.
That's what I think it means too. Jacob,
Jacob did a whole episode?
Jacob, you're on.
Is Jacob on?
Jacob did a whole episode. Jeez. All right. Wait, I'm Jacob.
I'm not prettied up for the camera, so I'm just gonna do audio only.
It's gonna be a bad look for your channel.
Man.
Not in a blazer.
It is gonna be a bad look for my channel.
Smart move to save the brand. Yeah, just
yeah. I gotta keep the pretty face going. Well, hey, and thanks for having me on. I think aren't we chatting tomorrow on my channel?
We're talking tomorrow. Yeah.
He had mentioned that. He's like, yeah, I'm actually talking to your brother tomorrow.
It's a very Hanson weekend for me.
Yeah, man, you got to talk to
When's
Dan,
the family reunion?
We got to get Ian in here, my other brother. So you can talk to all of us. Well, real quick, and then Forrest, I'm coming to hang out with you next weekend.
That's right.
So the Still Brothers thing, so everybody knows it's not just an act. Forrest and I actually do hang out, and I'm sure
you like each other. I thought you were just good actors. Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Forrest?
Up?
I was gonna say we need to do another one for sure. It's been a while.
Yeah, those are great, by the way.
Yeah, I was thinking about it too. We do need to do that. In fact, I was thinking we ought to have you on, Cody, and Forrest, and then Hayden. So that way there'd be like four of us.
Yeah.
I think that could be a pretty cool.
Did you see
I would
Hayden
love it.
with Cody before?
Yeah. I just watched that episode, and I've been watching some of your stuff, Cody.
Am I a radical?
No, I like your stuff, and you're a lot deeper than others. It really is a shame that your voice and like Forrest's voice are, not as popular as people like Zelf and Exmo Lex, which the level of, thought in those is just abysmal.
Yeah, it makes me sad.
But no, I think, and I was just, as I was kind of engaging with people in the comments and stuff in the chat, I almost think it would be cool to almost have like a group of people that are part of I don't know what to call it, but the group of people who are willing to have meaningful engagement with the best arguments from each side, right?
Yeah.
And like almost put together, like Forrest and I, we kind of are like in our interactions that we want to do every once in a while, want to sort of hopefully model that, where we really steel man stuff, where we get into the root issues. And then I mean I'm perfectly happy to do like formal debates when you do reach a certain impasse and you can't go any further. I have this thing where it's like, what do you do when you get to that point, right? Well,
Yeah.
at that point you can't go any deeper with that person. There's just a fundamental disagreement. And then at that point it's like, okay, well, in good faith, let's instead of talking to one another, let's talk to the audience. I'll make my case, you make yours, I'll offer my rebuttals, you offer yours. And then it's sort of like we've done that. And when I've done that with people, like I did with some evangelicals, Calvinists, from the Apologia Church, which is super anti-Mormon, it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. Honestly, it was so good. And I'm still good friends with those guys.
Yeah, I think bridging the gap, just showing, it's a shame that conversations like these don't seem to get modeled very much in popular culture. Like what's famous on YouTube is people slam dunking on one another, and that's just not real life most of the time. And so I think that people have some sort of expectation that that's what their conversations need to look like, and it really doesn't have to look like that. That's just a thing that is more fun to watch. And so yeah, just crossing the aisle, sharing ideas. I like when you can help someone make a stronger argument. Like tomorrow when I talk to you about whatever we're talking about, like there would be moments where I would like you to say, this makes more sense to me than this. You should use this argument. And if we're all operating in good faith, then sharper swords are better for everyone.
Well, and a lot of times the way that looks is you get called out and you're like, oh, I don't have a good answer for this. Next time I'm going to be more prepared. Yeah. And so it happens even if it's not done exactly that way.
Well, and you need to have that conflict in order, as much as I hate sort of the neo-Marxist, Hegelian worldview, the idea of the dialectic has some real currency to it. The idea of two conflicting views, actually that friction can lead to intellectual progress. And if you're just living in your echo chamber, you're never going to, like, I always tell people, like, you don't know how good your ideas are or how bad your ideas are until you have them seriously challenged. And I don't mean just like if you seek out the best arguments on both sides, because so often the conversations are, oh, hey, I'm going to show you the best against the worst.
Yeah, that's usually what happens.
And that is so but the other thing is like, I'm not, it's funny too, and I think you guys probably would agree, like I'm not a kumbaya kind of guy, like, hey, like there's no differences here, like, well, just, but it's like there are real differences. I think those differences should be fleshed out, should be debated, there should be tension and conflict, but not hatred and animosity towards people. We can hold ideas in contempt. And I think there are these meta values that all of us, like a commitment to free speech, a commitment to steel manning the different sides of the argument, to good faith interactions. I think those meta ethics can undergird people that even have different points of view, but as long as they value those values, then you can actually have really interesting interactions with each other. Because if you don't have that, all you have is like power, and I want the power, screw the other side. I'm not interacting with them because this is a power game, and if I do anything where I interact with them in any way, then it could grant them more power, and I'm like, this is just pure power battle, right? And so that's why I consider myself a classical liberal.
Well,
I'm curious, Jacob, if we did a group discussion, who would you recommend from the Mormon side?
Yeah.
On what topic? It would depend on the topic.
Oh, really? Okay. If we were just, hey, a bunch of us, 3 or 4 ex-Mormons are going to get together, and 3 or 4 Mormons are going to get together and do a live stream and chat about any topic. Like, who do you think are kind of like the most reasonable?
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. So
side?
ones that are good at kind of interfaith interactions and dealing with the other side, and that. So Hayden is great. As I've gotten to know him better and worked with him and on different things, like he's awesome. I think you guys had a great conversation the other day, Cody. And he'll do that with people of all different sort of belief systems. So he's good. I'm trying to think who else is a really good sort of interlocutor.
Even if they wouldn't be down for it. Like, what about Greg Mattson?
Greg Mattson, yeah.
He's more of a news host
good.
kind of.
Brad Whitbeck.
I would love to talk to Brad.
Yeah, Brad.
I feel like me and Brad are almost the same person.
And I
feel like me and Brad are the same person.
Hey, no, I'm the same person. No, we should figure out a way to organize this, Jacob.
Yeah. No,
do you want to?
It'd be fun.
And I also want to make one more point about the whole, like, it's good to have conversations. I've always kind of like, I don't like that idea of like, oh, we just need to have conversations, because it seems like it's missing, like, what's the point of the conversation? Why are we having the conversation? And I think the thing that makes conversations important is what we're really trying to say is we need to have human to human interaction, because it's, we have conversations on Facebook, and what do those look like? They look horrible. And as soon as you have a conversation,
you should go on Twitter, man. Twitter, you want to see it get really bad.
It's just a lot harder. It's a lot harder to be, rude and hateful and mean the way you are on, like text interactions. And then it's also a lot, like, you actually feel the humanity of the other side. You're like, oh, I feel bad when I'm mean to you. Like a decent example of this is, so me and Hayden have only ever interacted in comment sections. Mm-hmm. And those interactions are always just super hostile. Not that we're like, really mean to each other, but it's just hostile every time. And I know that if I ever actually chat with Hayden, it'll be a totally normal conversation.
Yeah, you guys be totally cool with each other.
So I think that's when we're saying we need to have conversations. What we're really saying is we need to talk to the other side and realize, like, hey, we're both just people trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah,
I agree. Although I will say this. So, I do worry sometimes that the social niceties can cause us to hide the roots of the disagreements. And so I think there is finding that balance is challenging. And then, different forums allow for different things. Like a lot of people, it's funny, just like on Twitter, I am active on Twitter. And to some extent, I almost apologize to people because my interactions on Twitter, like Twitter is just a nonstop dunk fest. That's all it is. It's Exmos posting memes. It's us posting counter memes. It's just people dunking on each other. And to some extent, like, and I try not to make it personal. I try and focus on the ideas, but it's like, I'm just like meme dropping and like pointing out how stupid some ideas as I think. And people are like, oh, that's really rude. But it's like, look, on Twitter, I can't have like an actual, like, I can't like steel man your argument in some like good way in these little teeny character gaps with a bajillion people watching.
Yeah, it's not conducive to actual helpful conversation.
No, although it can be entertaining.
It can, no, it's fun to watch the trains crash, but it's terrible to see the carnage.
That's probably true, and that's why I sit there and have a lot of debates on if I should even be on there anymore.
Well, a lot of the times those conversations they're like debates where they're not for the other person, they're for the audience.
Oh, they're always for the audience.
Which is, I mean, there's pros and cons. I'm not saying that that's bad or good.
Well, and I always make the difference, and I think it's an important distinction. There's a difference between what I call public advocacy and private ministry. If I'm trying to like interact with you, like, I'm not going to be sitting there like, and that's what I think happens in some of these conversations. It humanizes us, and we actually kind of, to use Mormon or church lingo, it's like we're kind of ministering. We're trying to connect with each other on kind of that human level. But there isn't a realm of ideas that you detach from the people. It's just about the ideas. And you're just like, if I'm in a debate with you, like my entire mission in that debate is to crush what you're saying and to make the audience think that your ideas are absurd, stupid, and awful, right? Because it's a conflict. And the thing is that I actually think that that's good in the sense that that's where you really get to see if an idea can hold its water. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's my little rant.
I like it. I'm excited to talk to you tomorrow, man. Is it going to be, it's not live, is it?
No, we're just going to record it.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, we are, I'm excited. I think we're going to move on to somebody else, but thank you for watching.
Hang up on you.
Yeah, no.
We're going to politely move on.
Time, guys. But enjoyed the conversation and looking forward to chatting tomorrow.
All right. Take care, man.
Thanks.
Take care.
Later.
Bye-bye.
All right. So what I'm going to do, because we have Chris and we have Morgan and Jared, and then we have Woke Mason.
But
yes. So what
oh, wow. We got a lot.
Yeah, we have a lot. So what I think I want to do is I'm going to set a timer now. I want to bring Chris and Jared and Morgan on together, but Mason came on before they did. So we're going to add Mason, chat for a few minutes, and then we're going to bring the other two on at the same time. Does that sound good to everybody? I can see you. Give me a thumbs up if it does or doesn't. All right, cool. All right. So Mason, I'm adding you to the stream now.
What's up, guys?
Hello. We can hear you.
It's Woke Mason.
It's Woke Mason.
What's
That's
up?
a great nickname. What's up, man? What do you mean by you're woke? Sorry, you said that you're woke and people would think that you're woke.
So sorry, can I say one thing real quick, Mason?
Yeah.
I just want to. So Mason is the guy I was talking about earlier, where our friendship began with debating Mormonism versus Catholicism, which was it's hilarious because we've obviously both changed a lot of our perspectives.
Yeah, and it's funny too because like the thing that I always tell people is, in a way, we both won the debate. Like we both were eventually like, yeah, you're right.
We both highlighted each other's problems.
Yeah, we were wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So as far as the woke stuff, I don't know. It's like I've never met anybody that's been like, yeah, I'm woke. So this is more of just a joke than anything. But
yeah,
I think like a lot of people, the funny thing is there are people for sure that are very extreme, far left, like the typical, blue hair type liberal that everybody's seen videos of. They exist. They're out there for sure. I think in my circles of people that I talk to and agree with, I've never met anybody who's been like, yeah, I'm woke, right? And so I think posting online, if I was anonymous and I was saying things, a ton of people would be like, hey, you're super woke, right? But if they knew me in person, they'd be like, oh no, it's just Mason, like you just have some opinions type things. So yeah. I think it depends on what you're talking about. Like we could go from anywhere from diversity in movies to trans issues to whatever. Yeah. Like it just depends on what we're talking about.
Well, so what if I would like to zoom out a little bit more and just ask you what your definition of woke is?
To be honest, I don't know. And that's kind of my issue with the definition even.
Well, it's funny. Okay. So Porttime's been talking a lot about this. We're like, that'll be a gotcha a lot of times. So I'm not trying.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to gotcha, by the way. I know that was something viral last week with some author on like Jen Psaki's show, but that's not what I'm talking. So let me give you a pitch for it. And this is what I think woke is. And then you tell me what you think.
Sure.
And I think that wokeism is, it's a response to the postmodern conundrum. So the postmodern conundrum is any line of speech, any piece of art, any movie can be interpreted any number of ways. There's no correct interpretation. It's just how you read it. It's essentially, if you read Hamlet when he says nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. That's this postmodern conundrum that we're in. And so the woke answer to that is, well, the people who have the identity that we approve of, their opinion will be the one that matters. We will give their voice will be the one that will define the meaning of this art that could be defined in any number of ways. And so they basically have done this thing called intersectionalism, where it depends on like where you fall on an intersectional spectrum. Mm-hmm. And if you have the right types of identities, then your interpretation will be lifted up above others. So that would be my interpretation of what woke equals. That's like a practical definition. Where do you disagree and agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, like that. I think that would make sense as something, I guess, bad, right? Like I would agree that if that's your definition of woke, then I don't want to be woke, right? I don't think that anything should be based off of basically like somebody's opinion should matter in certain cases, I guess. It doesn't mean that their ideas are wrong. Like I think separating opinion from fact and experience, ideas, all of these things, it kind of like it depends on who you are, where you are. Let's relate it to religion, for example, right? Like I'm ex-Catholic, you guys are ex-Mormon. We all have some kind of, similarity here, right? But at the same time, like if I start saying all this stuff right now about what it's like to be a Mormon, and and I start talking, and I might actually know too. Like that's the thing, is like the weird part with this is I might actually know more about being a Mormon than you guys do, because I've studied and I've been in the books for years and years and years and years. The problem that I've seen happens where every ex-Catholic is pretending to be an ex-Mormon. So what can happen, you guys have probably seen, like, actually, no, just go back to like civil rights, for example. Like, let's just make it cut and dry. Martin Luther King Jr., we know who the winning side of history was and who was right in the end, right?
Yeah.
Desegregation. There was people making like arguments that segregation was good for Black people, and they were white, right? Like they were trying to help in a way. And the conversation didn't really need to be, what does everybody think about this? The conversation needed in that case to be, what do Black people actually think about it? It doesn't matter what you think is better for them. So I think this is all just to say, I think it's a very complicated issue. I do think that there should never be like somebody saying an opinion. It doesn't matter like who they are. If the opinion is leading towards a good idea, that should be a good idea. And if we are in a society where that doesn't happen and that's wokeism, then that's bad for sure. I do think there are times though where you have to kind of add a little weight to groups of people in large amounts saying things from a certain perspective, especially a certain political perspective. But
yeah, honestly, so I agree with. There's two pieces that I think are important, which is, your opinion doesn't automatically get erased because you're not a part of the group that's being talked about, let's say. And then the other side of the thing of it is, if your experience really is relevant to the conversation, then yeah, that experience should be taken into account in some way.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think there's both those sides of the spectrum are probably wrong. If you're like, get rid of your opinion, you're a white guy, what do you know? And then the other side is, my opinion is just as important as your opinion. It's like, well, you weren't there, you don't know what it's like. These laws affect me, and I'm telling you what again, and the thing is like, it's anecdotal evidence, but I think anecdotal evidence is evidence. And I think so as long as we're kind of between those two poles, then we're in the right spot.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also too, like, another part, again, just trying to relate it more to our experiences and to religion and everything. Like when I said earlier in the chat that I left and then immediately shifted, I left the church and then shifted left, right? Like in a blink of an eye is what it felt like to me. And it was so wild to me because I kept being like, I didn't even know why it was happening, right? I shifted so far left to this point of like, now people would call me woke. Again, I don't really think of myself as woke. I don't think that my friends would call me woke. I mean, you can tell me, but Mike would, but
oh really?
I don't know. Anyways, so I think that happens in part because of the distrust, right? So you get hurt by stuff. Forrest was talking earlier, and I'm not like, don't have a whole lot of time here, but yeah, you were talking earlier, like your parents, like, you're leaving the church was fairly amicable. You kind of had like you never really felt like you had to think much about your beliefs and everything like that. And so it wasn't that big of an issue. For me, it was a big issue. and it became a bigger issue as the years went by. And, you know, my parents and I are fine now, but there's a few years of like some actual like anger and hurt and everything like that. So you end up saying like, I don't trust anything that religion created. You start looking at everything, like you mentioned earlier, like a lot of our society is built on some sort of religion, right? Gay marriage, everything, trans rights. So now I'm looking, okay, abortion. Like there's two sides. Oh, there's this argument, there's that argument. Both kind of have some merit, let's say. And you're like, well, I know this side is super religious, and I know that how they made me feel, right? Mm-hmm. And I know that
and that they've been wrong about so much.
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
Like they're probably wrong here.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I think that's a huge part of it too.
But. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, if we could just have more voices that are open about what their political bias is, saying, you've now left this religion, you've now left this group that gave you an identity. Here's how you actually just build an identity. Mm-hmm. And you add all the things that you want to it. And here's a guy who did it that way. And here's a guy who did it that way. And find, you know, agree with them or find something in the middle. And that's all totally fair. I mean, would you say that you're still swinging left, or would you say that you've kind of equilibrated a little bit?
I think, I don't know. I don't really like, it's hard to put a definition on it for me. I think just like probably everybody calls themselves a libertarian nowadays. I'd say probably I'm a libertarian. All right. Definitely.
So definitely a
left-leaning.
Not everybody says they're a libertarian.
Yeah. But I think like probably a left-leaning libertarian, right?
Okay.
Somebody that's more on the like, yeah, I'm pro Black Lives Matter. You know, also don't touch my guns and let me smoke weed and all that stuff. So.
Okay. Interesting.
So we hate you.
All right. Well, yeah.
So now I'm gonna get kicked off
right.
for time.
So we're booting you.
Yeah. Well, we are gonna hang up on you, but only because there are more people to talk to. But Mason,
only because
thank you for
support Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. No, thank you for calling in, Mason, and hope to see you in the comments.
Yeah, for sure.
Appreciate it, Mason.
Okay. Take care, man.
Later.
All right.
I need to use the bathroom. I'll just turn my camera off.
Yeah.
I'll be back in
just turn off, and I'm gonna add these other two. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. By the way, hey Chris. Hey, wait. I gotta fix this camera situation. Can everybody hear everybody?
Where did that coward go?
Which one?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Nathan, if you want to call in, you can call in.
I wasn't talking about Nathan. I was talking about Forrest. Nathan didn't run away. Forrest ran away.
Oh yeah, Forrest, because he had to pee or something. I'm probably gonna have to do the same thing as him, but now that
I'll do it later. I just want to bear my testimony that Chris is a garbage person, and I'm glad that he labeled himself as such so that everybody knows.
It's the self-awareness that we really value here.
I'm a garbage person who does good things, so I'm going against the grain of what you claim people could be or not be there. So,
hey, that was just
inspiration to garbage people everywhere.
There are.
Just to cement that I'm a garbage person, the Mason guy was talking about, I've read more of your Mormonism than you Mormons have. Well, a lot of times us non-woke have read more wokeness than you woke people have. And if you get into the CRT stuff and look into it, it originates from Derek Bell, who was against the idea of not segregating. He thought it was a bad idea. It all started, he was critical of Brown versus Board of Education and felt that segregation needed to continue. I mean, that's one of the deals with the whole entire thing, is that we think, just like if we go talk to Mormons and say, hey, Mormons, read in your stuff, and if you really read all this stuff, you're going to go, what? It's the same thing we're trying to tell the woke people. It's like, if you read all your stuff, you'll go, what? Like that's all it ever is like look at it a little bit harder, because it's parasitizing your libertarian left-leaning ideas,
and luckily
pushing in some things that are illiberal and wants to desegregate.
Well, unfortunately, we've like deified the MLK style civil rights stuff so much to where they're now trying to co-opt it, because there's not much more beautiful than the saying that, you know, judge my kids by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. But then you get people trying to sort of co-opt MLK into this Derek Bell bullshit.
Oh no!
And they just don't don't mesh at all. Derek Bell.
Well, it outwardly says that it's skeptical of the civil rights movement. And that's what we've been trying, just like with Mormonism, just like with wokeness. The goal's always been read it. Please go read it. Read all of it. That's all we want. You know what I mean? Like, read
it reminds me of, do you guys remember there's that type of therapy that helps people quit smoking, where what you do is just really focus on the taste and the smoke, like really like be present with the cigarette and then realize how gross it is and then stop smoking.
Exactly. Because my type of
what you're talking about reminds me of that.
It involves affirming your addictions is what I would say. I'd be like, no, you ought to affirm, like you need to honor the addiction that your body is telling you that you need to smoke. And why would it tell you that you need to smoke?
I smoke intuitively.
Yeah,
it's intuitive smoking.
Addicts affirmation therapy is what I would call
conscious smoking. Yeah, and it's actually good for me.
To what my body's addiction to nicotine is telling me.
So I didn't want to jump on terribly long. I just wanted to clarify what I was saying. Jacob did like 5 hours on Is It Culty, and he got a score of Mormonism with Jonathan Streeter on his channel. You guys didn't watch that one.
I didn't even see that pop up.
The whole entire thing.
But
and he wanted to get... Go ahead.
First of all, I want to say what's up. I haven't actually met any of you guys. I've just been chatting in the comment section. So nice to meet everybody.
Nice to meet you
and
too.
Morgan, right? Is that
name?
So I was chatting with Marty, and I brought you up quite a few times. So don't be surprised if you see that. Because I saw you guys' episode with her right before, and I loved it.
Thanks, Morgan, this is the first time I've talked directly with you too. After
Chris, I feel like I've talked with you a lot because I watched so many of your lives. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, he wanted to get you, Forrest, on to get your.
Wait, were you saying so? Jacob had a multiple hour episode?
No, it was one long night. Multiple hour. Yeah, and he scored the Is It Culty thing for Mormonism, which what percent culty do you think he gave it? But. Jonathan wanted to have you on and have you get your score to kind of see if that matched what Jacob's score of the whole entire thing was. And that's something I think he still wanted to do.
Yeah. So Forrest definitely shouldn't know Jacob's score because that could influence.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Maybe don't.
Well, that was the idea.
Wait, but I mean,
Jacob's definitely going to give it a...
No. It's judging
you?
Mormonism. It's judging and
how
like
culty do I think Mormonism is?
Yeah, going through the Is It Culty website. And Jacob went through the whole website and gave it a score. And then he wanted to compare it to your score if he went through the whole website too. And because it gave a certain score, which maybe I shouldn't say directly.
Don't say the score because then I'll do it without knowing.
Yeah, this is the website for anybody watching who would like to do it, but it's isitculty.com. Jonathan, you're amazing. Good job doing this. So what made, let's see. So we have Morgan, Jared, and Chris. You wanted to correct what you said about Jacob's score. What's up with Morgan and Jared? How you guys doing?
We just like talking shit, I guess. We wanted to take this opportunity to both come out as polyamorous and bisexual.
Your channel's gonna blow up.
Actually, I'm
never gonna have sex with another man because I'm happily married to a woman. But just trust me, I'm very bisexual.
Oh, yeah. You guys are bringing that up on your last channel that bisexual people never actually go the other way. It's just like a way that they can say they're a part of the group.
I know so many of them.
There's just a lot of like straight married women who are like, guess what? I'm bisexual because TikTok talked me into it.
Yeah.
I play in the band scene like around Salt Lake, so I know a bunch of bands, and that became all the rage. And these couples, they're married couples, they announce it, and there's never going to be any follow through. Not that I have to say, hey, go do something so I can have it proven. But
show me the videos, damn it.
Yeah.
Hey guys, wait, we have an incredible announcement. Jacob just said he's tempted. He said it's genuinely tempting to leave Mormonism if all Exmos were this cool.
Don't leave Mormonism.
Don't leave, man.
Yeah, most people who leave.
You know how cool you have to be?
11 trans kids or whatever. Like Nathan was saying that he has. I don't know.
I don't want to laugh at that.
Part of what our channel is supposed to supposedly also look at how inside Mormonism they've got just as much of a problem of it, and I like how Jacob goes after that like a whole lot. Inside of Mormonism, I mean, it's the lines are getting all scrambled because of it, because they've got just as many progmos pushing whatever inside of it, and
yeah. I was thinking about this, and I was gonna ask Jacob, but I was gonna ask him tomorrow, but Jacob, just be ready for this tomorrow. And also I'm gonna ask you guys this right now. Do you feel like there's this highway, or there's this pipeline from very, very active Mormonism to like super woke, like because Mormonism takes over so much of your identity that you have no choice when you leave? This is kind of what me and Forrest were talking about earlier, but you're such a blank slate after you leave that you just accept the first thing that you can buy. And is that responsibility partly on the Mormon church's like hands a little bit for creating a system that is so overwhelmingly like overwhelming?
Some of the statism, I think, on their hands a little bit. Like,
Chris, I raised my hand. You're being disrespectful.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's more concerned.
I've got lag happening though.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I got lag happening. I couldn't see. I've even got lag enough that you should keep going because it's stuff's all wonky over here.
Okay, hopefully it fixes. I was just gonna say that for me, being raised Mormon and with the family issues that I had, I didn't have much self-worth. I didn't have much of an identity. Mormonism kind of gave me like that fake identity and that fake self-worth. And when you leave, and that leaves a massive gap. And when you don't know who you are, you don't know how to see yourself as a good person, you need something else to cling to. And it's just so easy to cling to that woke ideology because they have what you believe is the opposite of Mormonism. You feel in Mormonism you were too constrained, things were too judgmental, and so then you take this this idea of total acceptance and inclusivity. It feels like beautiful compared to that, at least initially, until it swallows itself. But so it's easy to just think I need something else to let me know that I'm a good person, and that's how I see it. I don't know how I didn't end up. I think because I kind of got involved with other things.
I don't know. You weren't insufferable. The way that I always put it is that
what a nice compliment from a husband to a wife. Yeah. You weren't insufferable.
No, the way that I always put it is that like chill Mormons make chill ex-Mormons. And unfortunately, you don't hear as much from chill people in general, right? And you might be able to put a little bit of blame on Mormonism that it tells you to not be chill in some ways. I don't know. I feel like I feel like I didn't do Mormonism right because as a dog shit missionary, I was, I didn't like my mission, any of that. But the people who did it right, the way that they were supposed to, or according to them, the way that they were supposed to, they got really like weird and indignant about things. Like it was a little before our time, but like the Satanic Panic, or like, oh, you're listening to a Led Zeppelin album. You can't do that. That says the F word. Stop watching that or whatever. And then when they leave Mormonism, they want to have that same level of just throttle over other people. And so they then start saying, oh, well, no, it's not immoral anymore, but it's homophobic or it's racist or whatever. They sort of glom onto these things that make them feel like a righteous person, I guess.
Yeah, that was one of the I made a video a while ago that kind of exploded. That was like the 3 reasons I left the church. And it was funny. A few people in the comments picked up on it, but they're like, this guy, like, because all of my reasons are the reason why I can't be woke anymore. Like I can't let people control my speech. I can't let people control the things that I want to read. You know what I mean? And so that's the way that Mormonism was when I was in it. And when I built those, I was trying to have a conversation with my dad about the reasons why I left. And I didn't just want to say, well, Joseph Smith did this, and then this, and then this, and just like start a fight with him. I wanted to just say like, look, these are things that you will agree with. And I wanted to kind of be speaking the same language with him. But then as I like I swung to the left a little bit after I left, and then suddenly started to realize that if I wanted to follow that path to its logical conclusion, I was going to have to cross the rules that I had already made for myself. And then I found myself slowly moving to the right again. So I think that's a good point, Jared.
Well, and I do want to say this is where I have a little bit of a disagreement with you guys of like, isn't that the same mentality of like, hey, we need to give them something when they leave? The whole idea is like you leave and you get to decide for yourself what you want. You don't have to join another group, and I don't have to present you with another group. The whole point of atheism in my mind is that you're now free to decide which group you want to be a part of. So yeah, I agree that wokeism is a group. And so I look at all these different groups across the a spectrum and I say wrong, wrong, wrong. But I'm not here to prescribe groups to people.
I think if we're talking about practicality, I would just tell people to not leave Mormonism at this point. Like because that's sort of the thing. We go into these discussions a lot of times, and like I have a hard time with the whole what are you giving them after you lead them out of the church, because I don't really try to lead anybody out of the church. But I'm almost like, well, okay, but if something's a lie, you ought to tell somebody that it's a lie. And you shouldn't hide it just because you think maybe you arrogantly think it's better for them if they believe the lie. But at the same time, like, what if it is better for them? And what do you have to offer once you rip the rug out from under them? And I don't really, like, other than just like Western liberal values, I don't really have anything to offer. So it's hard for me to say, leave the church. But at the same time, I don't want to try to shove the cat back into the bag and be like, no, that's what brought me away from the church. It's this really simple thing. If anybody asks me about it, I just say, I don't think it's true. And that's it. That's the only thing that got me to leave it. And I don't know what to do about it, like a moral system after you leave.
So I'm the old guy here, right? And I've been through it and watched, and I was there during like the Christopher Hitchens 2005, 6, 7 atheism scene and watched that all fall apart. And there's a strange thing about neo-atheism that seemed to kind of mirror neoconservatism. The stuff that happened in the 90s and the 2000s was, let's go to the world and push our freedom, like take away your thing, like, we're going to go in and we're going to take apart your country, remove your dictator, remove this, and then all is well. And then that's not what happens. There's a vacuum. And in that vacuum, something worse can fill its gap. And so you just get left with this idea of like, okay, we got to have a little bit more of an idea of like what we're going to do if we're going to go rip stuff away from people. But I mean, I kind of agree that you can't really rip stuff away from people. The problem is I've just watched it. It's how it goes. You can't stop it from going that direction. Like something that is highly, boisterous and plays on moral hysteria is going to fill that gap. And that's kind of, it's a little bit like the Pareto distribution that Peterson talks about. It says you can't really point at religion and blame it religion, something that's a human condition that people just get. Like the mob, like we can go take the God out of the mob, but the mob's still there, and do I have answers for it? No, I don't have answers for it. So I feel a little bit kind of like Jared of like, I get to the point of saying like, I don't know, it's such a good idea to talk them out to it, especially if I've watched them go. So saying I'm one of the old guys, I was there. So I grew up in the same ward as Lindsay Hansen Park. And I was there at the start of Mormon expression, and I was there around John Larson. I was there around John DeLynn, and I knew these guys from behind the scenes. And when that stuff turned, it shocked me the same way that the atheism movement turned. It just, I wasn't expecting it. So I'm coming from a feeling of experience of watching it like kind of fall apart that way. Do I have answers for it? No, I'm right in the middle of saying, hey, let's not do that again, or let's try to figure that out better. But one of the things that gives me hope is people like you, because it does seem like you guys are the younger generation, and all that ever seems to be the answer to me is people who are more willing to hear sides and read the stuff and look at the thing. And that's one of the things that happens is the older generation of DeLynn and Larson and those guys, they ultimately have this weird censorious knee-jerk reaction. It's almost kind of like they're stuck in the same world of don't read the anti-Mormon literature, they're the same way about hearing other sides of ideas or other sides of politics and all that sorts of stuff. And it's they're just so shut down. And you guys can just talk to Jacob Hansen like it's nothing. And I've gone through large, long threads of arguments with people on Mormon stories that they can't talk with Jacob Hansen because he's out in the night, some sort of Desnat, whatever. And
because he thinks that he got banned from the Lobster group, and I didn't know anything about him. So for the longest time, I just thought he was like Desnat.
Yeah, I heard that. That's why.
Because they kept telling us, like, I don't know, everybody on the Lobster group was like, he's Desnat. So I mentioned that to Chris. I was like, I haven't really heard much of him, but I heard he's real like Desnat Nazi. And Chris is like, no, he's fucking not. Those guys are stupid.
But we're just as ousted. We're just as kicked out. I mean, like I said, I knew those people and I knew them.
One Desnat calling another Desnat not a Desnat.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, it's part of it is that I don't know. All I know is what happened. And I'd like to not go that way, but do we got to give them something? No, but maybe more critical think. But I think, like always, I think just the answer is more open conversation and looking at and reading the other stuff. And, you know, knowing their arguments as much as they know your arguments, you know, that sort of deal.
It almost seems like both of these groups that were just trying not to prescribe anything, just trying to describe things, they realized that that wasn't working. It wasn't making people change their minds the way that they wanted it to. And so they had to start prescribing things, which is then when it becomes a religion again. So they're like, well, our standoffish approach doesn't work because humans aren't like that. And so we have to create another structure for them to fall into. And the thing about structures is, I think there's this like eternal fight between structures wanting to take over like total control and entropy destroying everything and ripping it apart. And it's like you can choose one or the other. It's very hard to land in the middle for very long. Which poison would you like to drink? And you know,
so I'm weird in that I was a liberal Mormon and my parents were very liberal Mormons. My dad was part of James E. Faust's campaign, which was a Democrat campaign in Utah. And when I was young, I was a little bit more on that side of stuff. And then coming out of it is where I started shifting the other direction because, like you said, Forrest, I thought one of the ideas was like we were supposed to be skeptical of everything now. And that did sort of happen to me. And then I got skeptical of state narratives. I got skeptical of what was on, you know, NBC News and that sort of deal and reading more.
This is where it's like maybe you didn't even shift. Maybe the left just shifted left of you.
Yeah, that could be too. Yeah. So
it's like now if you were left in the 90s, you're
totally
far right extreme.
And that's really what we are.
That's really cool. That's I hated Prop 8.
But we feel like we can give Stillman some conservative arguments a little bit better, even if they aren't our exact arguments, because we're definitely open to the homosexuals and LGBT people if they're, you know, if they're adults and doing it, you know, like libertarians, like they're letting other people live their lives too, you know.
Yeah. I'm curious. I don't know if it's too late to open up this topic, but I kind of want to get all of your opinions on this because okay, Forrest, did we decide that this person is Jeff?
Yes, it is
Jeff. Okay, this is Jeff. All right. He says zero religion. And I'm curious if you think that that's possible.
No.
Oh no. Yes, I do. I just think we have different definitions though.
Okay, so Forrest, yeah, I had a whole part that I wanted to talk to you about this, but maybe it's too late now. But what is a religion for you?
I think there's a lot of I'd say that the critical piece in my mind is a statement about the afterlife. I think it's hard to claim something as a religion if it doesn't make any claim about the afterlife. I mean, and you might be able to say like supernatural, but I would probably.
What if it creates something supernatural in this world?
Yeah, that's why I would rather say afterlife.
Okay, so here's a question. So the reason I'm just like throwing this at you, and I want to hear what you think. The reason that a statement about the afterlife would be an important qualifier is because it would be like the main dictate for how somebody is going to live their life, right? It's the is at the end of their life that's going to create the biggest ought.
Kind of the reason that it's significant is because it's unfalsifiable, and so it doesn't play in the rules that we're playing. When we're trying to have conversations and we're trying to like convince people to do different things or have different perspectives, they're not playing the same game as us because they're believing in a thing that is unfalsifiable or unprovable even. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to deal with you. You're a religious fanatic that believes in something that I can't even, like, I have to have a personal experience with it or something. It's like, okay, you're not in the discussion of, you know, you're not in the talking about rational discussions. You're talking about, you have to have this feeling that I've never had, so I'm disqualified.
Sure. I think the main difference here, though, is that I'm less concerned with people's sort of supernatural claims because, I don't know, we got into it last week talking about like dowsing rods and shit like that. I can't think of a single supernatural thing that I actually believe in, right? But that's not the part of religion that concerns me. I always say that I think humans are just fundamentally religious. And when I say religious, I mean they have like axiomatic beliefs that they will follow completely or at least as completely as they can,
like on faith almost.
And this is where it's weird. It's like, I agree with that. It's like, how do we resolve this definition distinction? I guess the way I would put it is, which definition provides clarity? To me, it seems like there's one group of these axiomatic beliefs that are different than the other. And that's what I'm trying to describe. I'm trying to describe the axiomatic beliefs that are in this supernatural realm that we can't comprehend. And therefore that group of beliefs is in a different category.
I think I'm just really, really slow to declare an axiom is what I would say. And I don't think that a lot of people are. The people that concern me are the ones that are really quick to declare something an axiom.
Well, when we're talking zero religion, you mean like on an individual level or like in the world?
That's what I wanted to bring up, because it feels like I don't think that a group of people cannot be religious, but maybe one person could say that they don't affiliate with a religion. But at that point, we're using different definitions of religion. So, because I think a part of the definition of religion has to be it's a shared belief in a group of people that unites them. Like if you look at one of the reasons that made human beings evolve to the global superpower that they are, it's because they were able to create, we'll call it they were able to create a God belief that could then turn a stranger into somebody that they could trust, because they could assume that they shared a certain percentage of their values and beliefs with that person. And so, because we're very similar to chimps and bonobos in our social hierarchies, that we really can't know more than 300 people well. And so in order to interact on good faith with groups larger than 300, which we do on a country and state and like city level, we have to just be able to shrink somebody down to one box and say, you are a Christian, therefore I trust you. You share the same God as I do, therefore I trust you. So it's almost like a religion has to have the group aspect defined in it. And then, that's where it kind of falls off, because I think we fall in. Yeah.
I feel like that definition is missing something unless you consider, let's say, the Marine Corps is a religion. Because the Marine Corps, if you're a Marine, I'm a Marine, we have this trust, we have this connection, we have this bond. So to me, that has all the pieces that you're talking about, but I would not call it a religion. And I don't know if you guys would call it a religion, but I think it would be less clarifying if you did call it a religion.
I wouldn't call the Marine Corps a religion, because I mean, I could say they get like a religious level fervor, but there's worldviews like a Marxism or something with a historicism. Like if you look up Charles Fournier's like original idea of socialism, his idea of the place that we will get, the utopia that we will get, is so bonkers your eyeballs will fall out. Like he thought, like honestly, like when we achieve that utopia, the animals will become our helpmeets and stuff like that. They had these crazy ideas about when we get to this place that will be on this earth, but that place might as well be some wackadoo heaven, you know. And to me, it falls within this historicism falls within the religiosity that I can't. To me, even though they're claiming it's this realm, I don't see how you can't call that an afterlife type vision that's impossible and unfalsifiable.
I think to differentiate, it's like, okay, Marine Corps versus religion. It's with the Marine Corps, they have these things that they're doing together. It's a community, they are bonded, there is trust, but it's not like a framework of how to view the world. And I think that you can consider a lot of things that aren't necessarily religious to be religious simply by the nature of they are giving you a certain way to view the world. A great case study for this is Gen Z being so big into astrology. And I've been looking into this lately because I just find it so fascinating, because something interesting that I saw in a video, and I don't know if this is true, but I guess astrology has so much to do with, you know, the stars, and you're born a certain month and the stars are lined up in this certain way. But because of the way the earth is tilted, the stars aren't lined up in the same way that they were thousands of years ago when they came up with these groupings that they came up with. And so it's funny to realize that there are so many people who right now are replacing religion with astrology, and it means absolutely nothing when you look into it. But what is it providing for them? It's providing them comfort. It's providing them answers. It's providing them like a way to view the world and a way to view their relationships. And I would consider that religious, even though it's not like religious in the same sense that Christianity is.
I guess I would say that I think the problem we're running into here is that we're all sort of, I don't know. I feel like anytime I throw out the word religious, it's sort of a negative connotation. And I think Forrest is doing the same thing. And I think that the difference here is what we find negative about the term religion. And like you're ascribing more mysticism to it, and I'm to a point I don't really care so much about the mysticism. Like I really don't care all that much if you believe in dowsing rods. I think it's a stupid belief, but go for it, whatever. I don't care. That's not a big deal. To me, it's more the dogma, you know, like the dogmatic nature of your world.
So why don't you just say dogmatism?
Sounds better, I guess.
It could be.
I mean, I agree. Yeah, I think that's what Sam Harris talks about. It's like dogmatism is an issue, but I don't think anything like budge. Because you can be dogmatic about really superficial things, and I think it'd be absurd to call that. I mean, and I feel like sometimes you guys do. It's like if I love my guns so much, my Second Amendment is the most important thing in the whole world to me. Do you really think that that's my religion? Like, I think it's dogmatic, but I don't think it's a religion.
Why would you?
I wouldn't call it a religion, but I wouldn't be upset at saying that no, we don't. I mean, the zero religion. Like, there's going to be religions out there that don't have a whipped up mob behind them, and then there's going to be whipped up mobs that don't have a god behind them. And I'm worried about the whipped up mobs.
Yeah,
I'm worried about whipped up mobs too. This is where I just feel like there already are great words for all these things that you guys are concerned about, and putting it under religion just makes the conversation just muddied and confusing. It's like mobs are a problem. Dogmatism is a problem. Irrationality is a problem. But to call
but I think what we ultimately do is say that religion's not the problem. If we're calling them like religions, I mean, it's like we said, it's like something else is something else about humanity, which the thing that the substrate that we're all trying to grab onto here is problem, like a real problem. But it doesn't necessarily, there's people who don't do it who have gods, and there's people who do it who don't have gods, but they have something that gels them together, binds them and blinds them, a morality, and makes them do stupid things, and things that become collectivist visions that we all must buy into, or they have a problem with us. And it's really ultimately that, a collectivist vision of the world that we all must buy into. I mean, we could just say it the long way like that. Yeah. Kind of like the vision that we all must buy into, or that's the end. You know? Yeah. Wait, is everybody frozen or am I frozen?
No, Chris is frozen.
Okay.
Oh, Chris is frozen.
Okay.
No, Chris is good.
That was terrifying.
This is what you were talking about the other day, Chris, where people were just still.
Yeah, and then I keep talking, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's got to be something with my. I actually think it's the snow around. Are you guys in Salt Lake? I'm in Saratoga-ish. Oh, the snow's been insane lately, but I think there's probably snow up on, but who knows what. But anyway, that's all. I mean, I don't want to take more time. Maybe I'll take off and you guys can keep talking. But it's just really that. I mean, I can change the wording if you want the wording, but I'm more worried than if somebody believes in a God or not. I'm worried about collectivist visions that we all must agree upon, or you are out or need to be dealt with. So
and it's weird. This conversation about like the definitions is so weird because it's like I'm not sure if it's worth the time. It's like I think we both can communicate regardless. Yeah. And yet we kind of keep digging into this issue, and I feel like I need to fight it. And it's like maybe it's just we should just say we have different definitions, but we'll talk about this other thing instead.
Well, it feels like the reason the definition comes into play is because there's a lot of people on the ex-Mormon side of it that are criticizing people for being religious. And I think when we point out like that you're being religious too, that's just us saying like you're doing the thing that you don't like it when they do. It's just that they're admitting that there's a God behind it all. They're admitting
it depends. It's like are the ex-Mormons saying they're being dogmatic, and then you're saying, yeah, you're being dogmatic too, then I agree. Or if they're saying they're believing in the supernatural,
but you see so often
supernatural too.
Yeah, but you see so often that Dehlin and Larson, the people we're picking out, we go through and pick out very specific things they say and do, right? And say, look, this is what we're talking about. And one of those things they very specifically do is start reciting scripture back at Mormons and start saying what Jesus really would believe and start saying how Jesus really know what they really know what the Bible means. And that's when we're saying you're doing the same thing. You know, it's you can announce you don't believe in God, but then you guys invoke God to take down the Mormons. Not you.
I think that's I think that's fair. Just I mean, we'll have to. This is a much longer conversation, but to me, that's just saying if you guys believe in Jesus, I think this is the better argument for what Jesus. Like, I think it's possible to do that. This is where
I think they're
Jacob
trying
gets
to play
into
by their rules.
Yeah, you play by their rules, and you're saying you guys aren't being consistent. If you believe in Jesus, then you should believe in this verse.
Sure, but they co-opt him completely to the point where it's like Jesus just happened to hold all of my opinions. Jesus, even though he absolutely decimated that fig tree for not producing figs, he was a total socialist. You know,
they use the Bible like a ventriloquist, just like the religious people do.
Right. That's so true.
So that's basically the religion thing. When we throw out like you're being religious, it's like we're saying, well, you too. You know, like that's. You're doing the same thing, but at least they're admitting that they're doing it. The Mormons admit they're being supernatural. And the ex-Mormons, the Tara Burrells out there are like, I'm just super hyper rational and all my opinions are based in fact.
But I will go one step further and say that I think Jared could probably say it too, that the points that we point out when we're pulling out those clips is that no, there really is an extra level in there with them, even if they say there isn't. They really start getting.
Well, I see you guys
they
doing
really
that
start believing their stuff, and they really start thinking that they're doing God's work and Dehlin will say as much, and we pull the clips of that. You know?
Like there is this supernatural thing that we are actually promoting, and I think I see them kind of doing that, and I don't want to get into it too much, but yeah, like I agree with that criticism, and that's where I'm like kind of torn on: is supernatural a statement about the afterlife, or I mean, is religion a statement about the afterlife, or is it supernatural? Because supernatural can be, you can look at like wokeism and like, do you guys have a supernatural belief here that's like this unifying thing that doesn't actually exist? Anyways.
There's an eye.
They pretend that they don't. That's my beef.
There's an eye at the end of history. Your friend Mason even invoked it. There's an eye at the end of history that's judging things, and it's got to go the direction that eye at the end of the history sees things. Do they think that's a being? I don't know. Sure seems like it. Maybe it's a collectivist transhuman monster that's looking back on us and judging us. But what is that eye at the end of history? What's this direction of history? The long arc of goodness that we're arriving at. But that's maybe being nitpicky on that sort of deal. But I like on your channel, I wouldn't pick out anything. I mean, I pointed to where some people in a movie had some ideals, but I haven't seen
to me.
Yeah, but I haven't seen you like push like general like ideals or something like that. And I'd probably
no, but I mean, I do. I feel like ideals, but
I mean, like a religious tier.
I believe This, I think, this is what I'm arguing for, and I'm trying to convince you that this is the better way to live. That's kind of the way I see it. I see it. These are objective facts in the universe.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say you've gone religious tier. And if you did, I'd probably point it out. You would have been a clip on the show. But
honored guest.
Yeah, but no, I mean that's just. But we're just generally picking bones. I mean that's generally the point that we're trying to pull with those specific people. And I do think this is one of the problems, and it's one of the larger things I look at. Is I do think that you can become somebody who really does kind of eradicate yourself from all of it. And then what do you have? You have an individual completely atomized, completely separate, completely not in any sort of group. That's a whole other ball of wax, a whole other thing to go down. But there's a lot of general theory and ideas and that we kind of go down, and talking about having something to replace it is that I do think you can achieve it. And then you also achieve some level of being a hermit. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. Yes, a hermit. I think that's a perfect place to end. We're all just going to be hermits.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I don't know. I appreciate all you guys coming on. This was fun. I hope everybody had fun. I didn't plan on actually going this long, but
I loved it. It was fun.
It happens. Forrest, thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
I guess everybody here has a channel, so I guess we'll just close with you all, starting with Chris and then My Spiritual Life and then Forrest. You guys just want to give a pitch for what your channel is about and what you're doing over there?
Well, I mean, we're Porch Time. Jared's on it, and we just generally we're the same thing that Forrest said. We kind of popped up because we were pushing back on things being woke. There were kind of some specific moments where they were asking on John Littleton's podcast for some conservative people to come on and give them some pushback, and we tried to, and then they shut us down and kicked us off and booted us and made sure that didn't happen. And that's what made us say, okay, fine, we'll do it. And we'll go on. And Jonathan Streeter, we popped up on there a lot. He has us on to do. We've generally, Jared and I have gone on to discuss or go over James Lindsay's and Helen Pluckrose's book of what was that one called? The Cynical Theories book. Because that whole thing is good for the woke people to read what's really in their stuff. So we've gone over that. But I mean, we generally don't really advertise out. And if stuff's going to get big and huge, like I said, I think you guys, all you young guys up and coming, the sky's the limit. It really is. You guys can take there's the Lynn makes what, $500,000 a year, that you guys can chip into that. Keep going, become something big and grow. And I hope you guys do grow. And that's the answer. The answer is you guys right here, and maybe you guys can do it. And I'm rooting for that.
You're making yourself sound old, Chris.
Yeah,
I am.
You're a part of it,
like a hermit, man.
But I'm not trying to. I am a hermit. That's also happened too. But part of it too is I'm not trying to grow the stuff that way. I was just yelling into the crowd. And if I wanted to grow stuff, there's other things I'd rather grow in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you guys have channels, and you guys have options, and you guys have every option that those guys had when they were growing up, and you have the size that they had when they were starting out. There's no reason you guys can't get there. Like, you guys can do it. I'm rooting for that. And then that will be, like even your brother says, if that all happens, we got a better future. And $500,000 a year, and go for it.
I'll split $500,000 with you guys. I'll even go for $500,000. Like, we'd split it 4 ways.
I'm just trying to get monetized.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I know.
I'm rooting for you guys. I really am.
Morgan,
take
you
off.
want
You
to
guys
talk
can
to
keep
us?
it.
All right. See you.
I'll listen off.
Thanks, Chris.
Nice to meet you.
All right, Morgan, do you want to give us your pitch for your channel, and then we'll close with and then Forrest, and then we'll have a prayer.
Yeah, I did see that closing prayer. Maybe we'll get Sister Jensen to do that.
And Forrest, when you say the prayer, don't forget to bless the refreshments.
Yeah, I'm also gonna pray for
I
my
hope
brother.
It's donuts. Morgan from My Spiritual Life. Jared does videos with me too sometimes. I started off 4.5 years ago when I left Mormonism, vlogging about my journey and just kind of how to maintain family relationships, kind of bitched about my struggles, bitched about Mormonism. Now I'm kind of changing directions. For a while, I did also talk about other cults. I researched 2x2s. You've never heard of them because no one has. La Luz del Mundo, a cult in Mexico. I researched a lot of other cults, did some interviews, super fun. Now I'm kind of changing directions and doing more understanding yourself kind of messaging, like self-awareness, psychology, how to better your life, self-mastery. And I'm excited about that. I'm actually really excited about it. I'm just kind of tired of talking about religion. So
yeah, and I gotta say,
Nice.
Cody, you've done a good job on this live stream here. I don't remember exactly what they were, but I know I've had a lot of Facebook exchanges with Nathan Bigler, and he really, really fucking hates Chris. But other than that, he's been like, this is the most civil exchange I've ever had with Nathan. Is in this comment section.
Wow. I didn't know there was a history.
It's kind of a joke, but it's also like, I think this sort of long form actual voices talking type thing is a really good idea.
Yeah. Nathan, I would, if you want to get on eventually, not tonight, but we'll do this more, and like, come on, let's talk. I think that's the way that we solve it.
yeah.
I'm
Or,
so
you know-
lazy. I won't argue with people if I have to type. I won't. I hate it so much. If I have to type, you win. I'm on your side, actually.
I forfeit.
Yeah,
Probably actually.
I agree with everything that you say. That's why in our group chat, I'm so like, I read everything and then I'm like, I hate typing so much. I only, if I say anything to you guys, it's because it's so important.
I feel honored every time.
Yes. All right, Forrest, talk to us about your channel, and then I'm gonna hit end broadcast.
Cool. Yeah, I run the channel Latter-day Skeptic. It's kind of just been a fun hobby project that I've been doing for 6 months or so now. I mostly focus on Mormonism, although I'm trying to broaden myself a little bit to just religion in general, but Mormonism, and I try to make have a little bit different takes, more just logic based and reason based rather than the intricacies of the histories of Joseph Smith and, you know, what I consider like CES letter type of conversations or type of critiques. Yeah, been loving it, and hopefully can put out more content. I do about a video a week is about as much as I can do right now, but I've enjoyed being on this live stream. Thanks for setting it up.
Yeah, of course. I would love to come up with a manageable reoccurring schedule where we can do stuff like this. Bring guys like Jacob on, bring people who he thinks we should talk to. Like, this would be a fun, like, monthly, like 4 people are on, 2 are ex-Mormon, 2 are Mormon, and just let all the people interchange. I would love to do something like that. So
and let the comment section just go crazy.
You would be good at facilitating that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm so fucking milquetoast that I'll just like let everybody do whatever. It's awesome. No, I see it as a good thing. So yeah, everybody go check out My Spiritual Life. I say everybody, both of you have more subs than I do. So like,
also our subs are probably the same subs.
They're
probably.
It's all the same. Yeah, exactly. So like, there's no channel growth going here. It's only personal growth, but that's what I like more anyways. So
that's what's most important.
Yeah. So yeah, everybody check out
win.
everybody who is here. I'll eventually post all of their channels in the description, but it'll probably take me a minute. So goodbye, everyone. And I'm hitting end broadcast right now.
I don't believe it.
And-
No.